Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Call the meeting to order. This is Tuesday, November 21st, 2023, the open session of the regular council meeting. Join us, stand and join us in the singing of our national anthem.
The true north, strong and free, from far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you. We have a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Richardson, I think you have the adoption of the open session agenda.
I do, and through you, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that the agenda for the open session of the regular council meeting of Tuesday, November 21st, 2023 be adopted as circulated and with the following amendments. Additions, item 6.1 being a deputation by Paul Reed regarding speed limits on Hazeline, Emily Township relating to item 12.1 on the agenda. Item 6.2 being a deputation by Michael De Silva regarding Hickory Beach dock licensing relating to item 9.3.25 on the agenda, and item 13.6 being memorandum by Councillor Perry regarding a resolution of the culvert onto 149 Fenland Drive, Fenland Township. Thank you.
Thank you. You did have a seconder. Thank you. All in favor? And that passed. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest on anything on the open session agenda? Councillor Smeaton.
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor. 14.1.13 through to 14.1.16, and they're just the same as the last council meeting, but now they're being put through. Thanks.
Thank you. If there's any other as the meeting goes on, advise the chair and we'll deal with them accordingly. Thank you. Notices and information by members of council. Deputy Mayor Richards.
Thank you, and through you, I have a few announcements. We are in the Christmas busy season, so bear with me here. First of all, I do want to say a big thank you to staff members from the Birch Point Drive community. They got a park refresh this fall, and they're absolutely thrilled and wanted me to pass on those thank yous. to everyone. So I'm doing that. We have numerous upcoming Santa breakfasts: Pontypool Community Center, Sunday, December 3rd, Janaville Community Center, Sunday, December 10th, and Bethany Community Hub, Saturday, December 16th. All the details are on their social media and websites. Janaville Community Center Kids Craft Morning will be on Sunday, December 3rd from noon to 4. The Pontypool Santa Night Parade will be Sunday, December 3rd, 6 p.m. on John Street at the Fire Hall commencing. The Manvers Swans hosted their first community engagement this past Friday at 17th at free public skating at Manvers. Huge turnout, and their next fundraiser is tree and wreath raffles at all the local Santa breakfasts coming up. And also just want to give a shout out. It's that time of year when we have a lot of events happening across the City of Kawartha Lakes, and we are looking for those non-perishable food items and donations. It's imperative that we get out there and support all those because it does help a lot of families in our area. So that's it for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Warren, did you have something?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, thank you. Bob Cajun kicked off the Christmas season last weekend with Festival of Trees and Mingle and Jingle. I have never seen so many people at Settlers Village, so that was just amazing. I want to thank all the volunteers that helped make the weekend a great event, and they make the village shine. This coming weekend, the Boyd Museum will be hosting the Gallery of Gifts event. They've done that for a couple of years now. It's always a good event. And on December 7th, there will be a tree lighting in Kinmount. And also on the 9th, there will be a Christmas bazaar in the community center there in Kinmount. Also, on the 9th of December, the Bob Cajun Canettes will be hosting the 75th Santa Claus Parade at 5 o'clock. So I hope some folks can come out and enjoy everything that's happening in Bob Cajun. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smeaton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, the first announcement is the Kawartha Concert Band will be having their festive concert on December 9th, which is a Saturday, 7 o'clock, and there's a free ticket for all council. And that's at Cambridge Street United. So let me know if you'd like to go with me and my wife. That'd be great. The next day, same venue, Kawartha Singers at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's a weekend of music in Ward 5 for sure. And that's a great concert. Last year both those concerts were excellent. Had an amazing night of economic education from a member of the Danish consulate, which was a really interesting perspective on things at Canadian Club on November 15th at the Legion. It was a great turnout and an excellent speak. I'd like to thank the BIA for including me in the Santa Claus Parade. That was a lot of fun. Thanks to Craig Logan for giving me a flight at the airport, our Ward 5 airport. He wanted me to see the city from a plane, and I thought that was a really cool idea. I was petrified, and I went. And it was neat and a really, really cool way to see the city. Very important, actually. I found it quite profound. Speaking of which, great announcement, the Canadian Flyers Aviation School. We have a flight school coming to Lindsay, 10 planes and an incredible curriculum. Much more to follow on that, but a warm welcome to this new business, which will a lot of opportunities, including jobs. And my last is I rode my first combine. So I harvested corn in Ward 5. We often think of Ward 5 as urban, but we have a lot of farming. And it was really great. And it ended up including a formal invite to council, which I'll send out from Paul Robinson at the Oakwood plant, where the corn that I harvested will then, the next step, he thought it'd be good for me to see the whole process. So I have an invite to council that I'll send out by email from them so that if anybody'd like to join me, that'd be fun. Thanks.
Thank you. I noticed you said the Ward 5 airport.
I meant a Ward 5. I was trying to show why it was a Ward 5 announcement. Sorry about that. Yeah, the Lindsay Airport, the Kawartha Airport.
I just wondered if we were going to area rate it to. Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, I just got a couple of shout outs. The first one was at the Lindsay Boys and Girls Club, and Planet Fitness partnered with the Lindsay Boys and Girls Club and donated a whole bunch of exercise equipment. It was a really good day. They what a great partnership, the two of them, and they're committed to continue working with the Boys and Girls Club. So I thought that was pretty awesome. Also, got a call late on Friday. I got Deputy Mayor Richardson and myself went to Sir Simon Fleming College and met the mayor from Nigeria, which was pretty interesting. It was a short visit. He's going to be back in the spring, and I'll have more details coming when he comes. He'd like to see the Kawartha Lakes, a little more of it, because he was on a time delay type of thing. So, and of course, again, the Santa Claus Parade. Thanks to Downtown Lindsay. And the volunteers and the organizers that did a great job. And as you can see, we, Councillor Speet and I got the best weather going for Canada Parades. I wish everybody else the best luck for their parades. And the tree lighting was also happening on the BIA, was on Friday, which was pretty awesome also. And thanks again for everybody that helps and volunteers there too. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Joyce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, 'tis the season, and in Ward 4, we have some Christmas parades, and I'll mention them in reverse chronological order this year. First off, we have Woodville, who likes to be as close to Christmas as possible, Saturday, December 16th, starting at 6:30 p.m. The small but mighty Washburn Island Christmas Parade is Sunday, December 10th at 4:30 p.m., and Little Britain kicks it off on Friday, December 8th at 7 p.m., and with the Little Britain Community Association that puts the parade together, they have 5 trees available for sponsorship at $100, or you can sponsor a wreath these are all supplied and decorated by the LBCA at $75, or provide a wreath or planter to be auctioned off at $35, and all proceeds go to local families that really need some help at Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few announcements. The International Plowing Match and Rural Expo will be holding a volunteer recruitment night, and it's actually tonight is the first one, and it's going to be at 7 p.m. at the Fenelon Falls Community Center. And the second one is planned for the 28th of November at the Bob Cajun Globus Theatre box office at 90 Bolton Street in Bob Cajun. So the group is recruiting volunteers for the 2024 International Plowing Match and Rural Expo. And this morning, the International Plowing Match and Rural Expo in Guelph, Ontario, the head office has launched the website, and it could be for City Kawartha Lakes, and it could be seen at Plowing Match, www.plowingmatch.org. Next, Mimi, there'll be a tree lighting on December 1st. That's at the Coronation Hall. So there's many folks from not just Omimi, but surrounding area go to the tree lighting, and it'll be a great event like it was last year. Tomorrow night kicks off my first of 2 town halls. The first town hall will be at the Coronation Hall in Omimi tomorrow, Wednesday night, the 22nd of November. And the public is welcome to come from anywhere. And my second...
What time is that?
7 p.m. And my second one will be on the 6th of December in Dunsford at 7 p.m. as well. And finally, Remembrance Day week was filled with many activities, and I'd like to thank everybody in the community for going to different memorials or parades, citizens, councillors, everyone attended so many events. Had a busy week. I interviewed a World War II veteran from the community of Victoria Place, south of Bob Cajun, Mr. Ed Van Buskirk, and my interview's on Facebook, my Facebook site, and he's an incredible man who went through Normandy. And then on the 10th, I went to the Omimi Legion banquet, where we had 2 very special guest speakers from Wounded Warriors Canada. We had Rebecca Shillamat, she's a military spouse, and Miranda Zapiri, she's a military mother. And they were quite an inspirational speakers that night. And if you ever get to hear them, it's an amazing organization. Wounded Warriors of Canada, woundedwarriorscanada.ca. And also Mr. John Sadler, he's a World War II veteran from Omimi. He was there as well. And then finally, at night, I attended the CATVA Kawartha ATV Association in Dunsford. Councillor Perry was there as well. And I also talked to another veteran named David Marshall, and he's a veteran of the war in Bosnia, and he had injuries during that war. So certainly an amazing week of inspiration, and when you see these people and talk to these people, veterans, and it was certainly a week to remember, and I want to thank everybody for all the events, especially the veterans. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to start by thanking the Fenelon Falls Legion, Branch 238, for its Remembrance Day activities, and all the volunteers who made it happen in Fenelon Falls this Remembrance Day past. There was a candlelight vigil, followed by a cenotaph service, as well as an excellent dinner. And by the turnout that we saw on November 10th, 11th, we can certainly say that we will remember them. I also wanted to acknowledge and thank the city for its commemoration of Louis Riel Day last week. Tanishi, Kiowa, Marseille. It's wonderful. Métis people have been very quiet since the times of Louis Riel for historic reasons. And it's wonderful to see us being acknowledged more and more in taking our place as one of Canada's 3 recognized Indigenous peoples. And last but not least, ho, 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 Mayor. This weekend, as you know, on Saturday is Fenelon Falls annual Santa Day. In fact, it is 3 days, 21 hours, 43 minutes, and 39 seconds until Santa Day in Fenelon Falls. You'll come for the Christmas spirit and the hospitality, but you'll stay for all the shopping and great restaurants, as well as the fireworks. It's a major draw for Fenelon Falls every year, and we're looking forward to it again come Saturday. I want to thank all the volunteers again who make this happen, and also note that please arrive before 4:30. The bridge closes at 5 for the annual Fenelon Falls Santa Day Parade. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Yeo, do you have anything?
I just wanted to let council know that the outdoor rink at Ward Park has been poured as step 1. So hopefully with the release of the funds that council approved from the reserve and stuff, we can carry on, and we'll hopefully get ice on it this year if winter cooperates. So big exciting news. And Norland, and of course the working on the sewers right now at the Wellness Center. So that's coming along as well. So thanks to council for all their support behind those projects. Thank you.
Did you want to say anything about the Santa Claus parade in Cobeconk?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's coming up on December 4th, I believe the date is, and 1 o'clock. And please come out and join us in Cobeconk for the Santa Claus parade hosted by the Chamber of Commerce. It's always a great day. See if the mayor and I can squeeze in that many again this year, maybe. But it's a good time for all, so come on out to Cobeconk.
Thank you. Councillor Smeaton, do you have something else?
Just very briefly, and I'm sorry, I had just jotted down when I finished, and then hearing Councillor Ashmore and Councillor Perry, I'm embarrassed. I didn't acknowledge our Remembrance Day, and I felt bad about that. It was wonderful in Lindsay as well, and I'm very sorry that I didn't mention that. It was a great day for those of us that were there. Really well put together. So thank you, and thank you to the city for the banners. They looked great. Everything went really well there too, which was nice, and a lot of compliments on that. So thanks.
Thank you. I have one announcement. Today I'd like to announce 2 notable dates of significance that will take place over the coming weeks. November 25th, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, will mark the launch of the Unite campaign, an initiative of 16 days of activism to eliminate violence against women and girls. Globally, an estimated 736 million women have been subjected to physical and/or sexual intimate partner violence, non-partner sexual violence, or both. On December 6th, the City of Kawartha Lakes will stand with the rest of the country as we commemorate the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women. This date marks a day of reflection and action as we remember the 14 young women tragically taken from us during the École Polytechnique massacre in 1989. This somber anniversary serves as a stark reminder of the persisting challenges faced by women and girls in our society and the urgent need to work together to eradicate violence in all its forms. To honor the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women, the national flag at City Hall will be half-masted on December 6th. Thank you. Moving on, are there any notices from staff? Seeing none. I need a motion that the minutes of the October 17th, 2023 special council meeting, the October 24th, 2023 regular council meeting, the October 31st, 2023 special council meeting, the November 2nd, 2023 special council meeting, and the November 8th, 2023 special council meeting be received and adopted. Deputy Mayor Richardson, Councillor Perry. All in favor? And that passes. We'll now move on to deputations. We have two today, and the first one is regarding a petition for speed limits on Hayes Line in Emily Township. Mr. Paul Reed, you have 5 minutes, sir. I think you'll find a button at the bottom that will turn it. There you go.
Got the red light. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council. I've been voluntold for this job by the people who've signed the petition. And basically this petition is regarding appropriate speed limits for Hayes Line, appropriate warning signs for Hayes Line, and possibly some center markers that obviously would be decided upon by experts and the appropriate departments. But we wanted to come here today just to thank you for the opportunity, A, to present this petition, have you consider it, and also to thank council or whoever is responsible for the Jump In Kawartha Lakes platform. It's really terrific for very local concerns, a chance to voice those, so thank you for that. And we want to thank you for our paved road. We've had years on Hayes Line, which, as most of you know, or many of you know, is a boundary road between Cavan and City Kawartha Lakes. It's a direct line in the north end of Peterborough, and it's got a roller coaster characteristic, which was fine if it was guarded by gravel road and potholes. But they're gone now, and what we have now, probably predicted by many, is a roller coaster racetrack. We really do. I'm not here to, I think most country roads can handle 80 kilometers, and then of course the 100 kilometers that the 80 brings. I think that they can mostly handle that, but Hayes Line is a different road. So far we've had 2 recorded rollovers, which I've been living here since 2006. I don't know of any rollovers on Hayes Line. There may have been some, but we've had 2 good rollovers, and we've had a lot of anecdotal reports of close calls in the middle of the crests where some folks are going faster than they should be, and then of course they need to get to the middle of the road and over the top, and all sorts of issues with that. We have provided a handout which is self-explanatory. Richard Kiefer, Dr. Richard Kiefer, who was unable to come today, prepared this handout. Bit of an engineer, so there's some engineering justification for grade issues, stopping site issues, stopping site distance issues. At the bottom of some of our hills, particularly towards the Ski Hill Road end, we've got families with children. I know 2 families that have told their kids to, keep an eye on where the ditch is so they can dive in. And we have school bus stoppings at the bottom of these roads as well. I don't know how people are going to stop on time one day when the right confluence of circumstances presents itself. I don't really have much else to say. It's a straightforward safety issue now. I know that people are going a lot. If everybody stayed at 80 kilometers an hour, it would probably be all right, but they're not. And so what we're hoping for, again, is where appropriate. We're not looking for 60K across the whole line, but where appropriate, that people have a look at where 60K would be appropriate, probably surrounding the higher hills and the roller coaster areas. It's certainly where children are. And one last pitch for the elderly, which I don't fit in with. But you know, I have also had people tell me on the street that they're afraid to stick their nose out in some areas, to pull out of their own driveway now, because the traffic is coming so quickly off the crests of these hills. I've had one occasion myself where I looked both ways, turned, headed east towards Peterborough, and there was a car right on my tail that I had not seen. So I don't think people are, you know, being overly apprehensive. I think there's some reality to this. So I want to thank you for your time. I don't think there's really anything else. Hopefully the handout is self-evident.
If you just stay there for a couple of minutes in case there are questions. And we'll be dealing with the petition later in the agenda. I believe the deputy mayor will be making a motion to send it to staff for their consideration. I note that she wishes to speak, so please do so.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Reid, for coming today and bringing your information to us regarding some of your concerns. As we know, we've been chatting and it has become an issue out there, especially with the new surface. And I thank you for the pictures that you send me and the communication, keeping me informed. And yes, as later in the agenda at 12.1, I will be bringing a resolution to council to address some of the concerns that you've brought to our attention today. So again, I thank you for representing the community out there and being a great resident and doing the best. So thanks.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Any other questions for the deputy? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Reid, for coming.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Can I have a motion to receive the deputation? Deputy Mayor Richardson, Councillor McDonald. All in favor? And that's passed. Our next deputation is Mr. Michael De Silva. He's on Zoom, and he'll be talking about the Hickory Beach dock licensing. Are you there, Mr. De Silva? Whenever you're ready, sir.
Yes, I am.
You have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. I wanted to say my main purpose of today was to find some common ground where everyone could be in agreement. We're all conflicting members to resolve the issue and put an end to it once and for all. In saying this, I believe that it is important that everyone know that I have a friendly neighborly relationship with all the neighbors at the cottage. After countless conversations with the Barbozas, I have been able to get them to understand that Linda is within her rights to use that second dock space as it was being used before the start of the dock association, which I was involved in the start of the dock association. Being bilingual, I wanted to bring together the Portuguese neighbors with the English-speaking neighbors so that everyone can live in peace and as a community. After talking with the Barbozas, I believe that they are in agreement to let this be and stop with the phone calls to the city. The dock spacing, Fatima was concerned that she could not fit in a future boat lift as there was no room. But as stated in the last meeting, Linda's docks do not pass the 50% point in the water, giving Fatima ease of mind that she can fit her future boat lift in the water. I would ask Linda to do her best of ensuring the placement of her second dock not past the original cement slab, which I believe is already the case. It's roughly right lined up with the old cement slab, thereby keeping the placement as it was before. Even though I explained to the Barbozas, even though it looks different because there's a deck, as long as the placement is where the cement slab was before, as the dock association promised, we will not be moving docks, and that was not moved. It is still in the same position. And I reassured them that you guys can fit a boat lift in there. There's plenty of room. There's no need for this constant hackling of the city. And so everyone seems to be on the same, or at least the Barbosas seem to be on the same page and more understanding now, and have agreed to finally let this be, and everyone can continue on and leave the city alone, basically. So thank you for your time, council members, and I hope this helps to resolve that situation.
Thank you. If you just stay there for a couple of minutes to see if there are any questions for you. Councillor Perry?
Yeah.
Michael, it's Mike Perry, your councillor for Ward 3. I just want to say thank you very much for your efforts and for your update to council today. Really appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the deputant? Seeing none, could I have a motion that the deputation of Michael De Silva regarding the Hickory Beach dock licensing be received? Councillor Perry, Councillor Smeaton. All in favor? And that passes. Thank you very much for coming today, for being online. Appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7 is correspondence. I don't believe we have any. None. Item 8 is presentations, and item 8.1 is the Municipal Housing Pledge Strategy presentation by yours truly, and I've let the heavy lifting be done by the CAO. So, Mr. CAO, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and with you in this occasion. Wanted to provide council with an update on the Kawartha Lakes Housing Pledge and some of the active activity that's going on out there in relation to provincial legislation changes, etc. There is a corresponding report following this presentation. We'll be looking for or making some recommendations to you. So I was last here September 26th, not that long ago. We provided an extensive information report or update on legislation changes, things that were happening with respect to housing pledges, housing targets, building homes faster in the province, strong mayor powers. These were legislative changes or considerations that were happening throughout 2023. And so at that September 26th date, we provided you with an update on what was being requested of Kawartha Lakes at that time. And the coordination and responses were through Mayor Elmsley. I mentioned that there is a corresponding report. That report also continues the chronology of sort of milestones with the ministry post September 2026. So that report is there as well with all of its attachments, as well as what's happened over the last 2 months. So in that report, you're going to see comments back on the Housing Affordability Task Force recommendations. So that was an initiative done previous, and the minister requested that the mayor provide some feedback and comments from a local perspective. So that is included in the report that you'll deliberate soon. Also at the September council meeting, the mayor requested and asked for council's support resolution for the Kawartha Lakes specific target, and you unanimously supported that through a resolution, and the mayor subsequently followed up within the timelines to the ministry to advise that we were committed to meeting that target. In the report also, there is that mayor's response to the target, as well as the response to the Affordability Housing Task Force. And a follow-up appendix came from the minister, so it's a letter from Minister Calandra. We're now detailing or establishing our specific targets. So not only do we have a housing target to 2031, which I'll talk about briefly, or in a minute, but also established annual targets to commit to starting this year. So we're right into it. As you can appreciate, year end is just around the corner. So we're going to talk a little bit about those as well. The minister also followed up the latest correspondence acknowledging the city's support for the pledge, the commitments, and moving forward. So I want to walk you through very briefly the proposed or the draft recommended housing pledge that you'll consider today. Kawartha Lakes is required now to complete sort of this process that I described, or these ongoing sort of initiatives at the province, by mid-December, a housing pledge that will set out our existing, any planned or proposed strategies, tools, actions that we would undertake or need to have undertaken in order to meet the targets that are imposed and accelerate growth. So essentially meeting those by 2031. So in Appendix F to the staff report and mayor's report that is on the agenda is that pledge document. The cover is on the presentation slide. Through the mayor, also want to and acknowledge that certainly trying to keep up with these changes ongoing. It's not one person can't do the heavy lifting. It's definitely a team sport and team effort. And I want to acknowledge we had Michelle Corley and Leah Barry co-chair sort of an internal team to put together this report, this pledge to track. It was supported by a core team. There was a few directors, Faber, Holly. We had our city solicitor, Director Bukaboom, sort of all pouring over these moving parts and putting together this pledge, again, for your consideration. The final draft has been with input, as I mentioned, not just from staff, but the mayor directly. And we're bringing this forward now for your consideration. And we're looking for council's approval of the pledge document. And that will allow then the mayor to respond back to the minister before the December 15th deadline of our pledge and commitment to meeting targets. Sorry, I'm going to just mention sort of for overall context, as you're probably aware, but for those that are following, the province has established a 1.5 million new homes target by 2031. And they've been methodically working through the largest municipalities and working for targets that they can meet in those respective jurisdictions. Kawartha Lakes was a recent addition to meeting certain targets and contributing to this overall provincial target. The pledge that is being put forward, we want to make sure that we're using the tools that are available and offered to us by the province. And so they've established a Building Faster fund. We still need to see the deep details of that fund, but essentially they've committed $1.2 billion to support municipalities in meeting these targets over the time period. And as I mentioned, we need to submit this pledge by December 15th. So before we talk about some of the elements of the pledge itself, want to sort of just provide some local context as well. As you know, we've been active even prior to today and this change in legislation. We've been doing growth management planning, updating our previous documents. And essentially that is what the title is. It's how we're going to manage our growth that's anticipated. In this case, though, it was over quite a long period of time. So the exercise was to forecast out about 25 years of population projection. So the growth management strategy was looking at a 2051 horizon. That hasn't wavered. It hasn't changed. Still doing that work and anticipate that work to be completed in 2024. It's good timing. It has served us well to inform this pledge. And as you can appreciate now that the province is targeting 2031 and offering certain tools and funds to try to accomplish that, some of the forecasts that we were making through our growth strategy, we need to accelerate. So we need to rapidly sort of speed up in order to be responsive, but also to be ready for this overall growth and development. So as you can appreciate, and I know you know, as part of the growth management, once we understand or commit to overall where we're heading with population, then we have to accommodate it. We have to ready for it. And so some significant master plans have been initiated already. And again, fantastic that they were established or started when they were, because they're going to directly feed into now this new work to support the pledge and the commitment. And really, they're two large-scale, what I call critical infrastructure. It's the infrastructure you need first to actually support the construction of the homes that you're committed to. So that's your water and wastewater plants, that's your roads, and your traffic infrastructure, your bridges. So getting those in place and getting a handle on those and investing and committing to those and accelerating them is critical. If we don't do that, we can't have the homes that we're proposing to target. So we're in good stead to start and certainly aligned. We have over 17,000 units that we call active applications. Essentially, they're known, they're somehow committed to, whether it's in our larger urban areas, and then by extension, subdivision plans, concepts. Our official plan designates areas for housing and development, as does our zoning. And so just those alone total upwards of more than 7,000 units that are in the queue somewhere. And as I mentioned before, all of these units need supporting infrastructure, and it's sort of a hierarchy. They need that water, wastewater. If you don't have the pipes, if you don't have the major utilities, if you don't have the roads and bridges to support, you can't build. Once you build, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later, the population that's incoming, as you know, demands other services. So I call it that population supporting service. And we're not unique to delivering it. It's also provincial. It's our schools, our hospitals, but then it's all of our other operations and services that we deliver municipally. And on the second sort of part of the slide, and really where we need to now understand a little bit better sort of the implications, but there's over 10,000 units that the province has committed to through the issuance of minister zoning orders. And that's a staggering number. It's a large number of units, and really quite recent. That's why a lot of our plans are being updated and looking at sort of what are the broad-based implications of this additional set of units that are there. So over 17,000 that are out there, concept, some part of the process leading in. I mentioned that 6,500 is the target, and so we may shrug to some extent and say, hey, we're good. We're triple prescribed. But there's so many complexities that go along with this. And I used the sort of image of an hourglass, but essentially, if you think about it as being very top-heavy to start, so you just tipped it, it's top-heavy, that's kind of all of these units that we're contemplating or are there. There's a pinch point in it, and it's got to run through. And if you don't have, again, as I mentioned, the infrastructure, the processes in place, and even just the supporting infrastructure to support it, it's going to stay top-heavy. Right? We've got to find a way to flow through. The other is, you've got 17,000 units out there. Our planning was only a fraction of that in the immediate term. So who gets in? Who's not in? So prioritizing becomes really important. And I think that's going to be part of what you're going to hear ongoing, whether it's through annual budgets, through sort of existing commitments, what our plants can handle today, and then who's ready to leverage that versus even 5 years from now and the expanded sort of infrastructure. So it's quite I don't even want to use the term a shell game, but as you can appreciate, it all has to flow through these considerations so that at the outcome, we should have a bottom-heavy sort of model that realizes this growth and development. And I just want to point out again, before I flip forward, the 6,500 units is a 2031 target. It is essentially in alignment with what our thinking was or what our forecasting was in the growth management study. So even though that's a target to 31, all of these units essentially we still view as in for the long game. They're here for the next longer term planning horizon to accommodate. So although we have to have a strategy for more immediate response, this is the long game, and we're looking at it over to 2051. So I mentioned that Kawartha Lakes has a distinct target that was imposed by the ministry. So 6,500 housing starts by 2031 is the target. Mentioned recently, and there's a letter in the in an appendix to the report that outlines 3-year targets, essentially establishing our proportionate share when you view all of the other municipalities in the province that are pledging and have housing targets as well. Essentially translates into 477 units that we would want or are targeted for this year, and then subsequently a slight increase, modest increase in 24 and 25. I think it does take into account that if you are going to leap forward and actually meet, again, 6,500 units locally here, if you do the math, you almost need to do 1,000 units a year. You can't just turn the tap on and do 1,000 next year. There's, again, complexities, there's market, and everything in between in order to accommodate them. So this is a gradual sort of 3-year forecast, which will then, I think, leap forward in that 25, 26, 27 timeframe. And the province, the way they've structured it is if you meet your targets, you then are eligible for funding to support critical infrastructure, to support these housing starts annually. You need to meet at least 80% of your target to be eligible for some funds, and then it increases relative to what you actually achieve in any given year. So right now, Kawartha Lakes for 2023, we are just under, but we're approaching that 80% target as of our recent count, and are optimistic that we'll reach or exceed that 80% number at least in this calendar year. I mentioned the fund. The details are still not known, so I can't give you a lot of information in terms of order of magnitude. What does that translate into at this time? So the pledge document itself is themed, and you'll see that in the report. It's detailed much further, but essentially it's looking at different strategies and actions under those different categories. So the first one is financial strategies. And we've listed, again, some of the themes generally. We're back into a readiness mode. We need to really start today and then continue on with structuring our financial approaches, our cost recovery mechanisms that we have with growth, whether that's at a large scale to cost recover for investments in capital and infrastructure, or if it's simply cost recovery for operations, for processing of these applications in the immediate term. So everything's on the table. We put it in the pledge, and we're going to be coming back to you regularly for decisions, for advice, for direction in these various streams. One of the other things that we're going to have to start doing, and actually it has started even in the 2024 budgets, is reprioritizing certain projects, making sure that we do those critical ones now and in the very near term, so that especially, again, I use the example in September, if you want to expand water or a sewage treatment plant, I mean, you've got a 5-year process there. It requires environmental assessments, it requires good detailed planning, then it requires construction. So we're already in a time lag for some of these things. And so if we don't start today, 7 years will come very quickly in that context and term. We won't realize or meet some of these targets if we don't focus on critical infrastructure. So plans, processes that will initiate that are already incorporated, for example, into the 2024 budget. Another theme is, again, leveraging what we've been doing, leveraging our planning now. These take time, and there's a lot of complexities, a lot of considerations. We want to make sure that the processes and the plans are open, transparent, that they are consulting with the public, with stakeholders, with organizations that all have a stake in this growth and development. And so one of the things we've highlighted in the pledge is we're going to leverage these processes to help accelerate things. You're finalizing, and early in the new year, we'll be adopting a new strategic plan. I suspect, based on our conversations to date, that supporting growth and development will be a high priority, and there'll be some tactics and actions, for example, in that sort of overall umbrella plan. And I won't read through all of the plans, but rest assured, there are many that are out there, and many that are active or need a refresh. And so you'll see on the graph, there's a timeline along the bottom. Many of them that were critical are going to be started in 2024, if not already. And again, there are all these informing pieces, either for the immediate or for that future population that's coming and supporting the service delivery in those respective areas. So I don't necessarily need to remind you, but I think it is important to always sort of highlight and remember that we are a single tier, and because of that, our portfolio of municipal sort of service is expanded when compared to either an upper tier or a lower tier, respectively. And so things like planning and development are typically a lower tier function, other than some very macro planning at a county level, for example. In the reverse, typically regions and counties are the service managers. And in this case, housing service managers. And as a single tier, we are too. And so there is some, I guess, advantage to having those portfolios under one umbrella to better coordinate and adjust. But one of the things that certainly I think is maybe unique to some extent because we're a single tier is not only are we in our pledge focusing on the growth and development and the levers that are needed to make that happen, but it's also recognizing our role as the service manager. So at the end of the day, this pledge is essentially committing to providing as best we can the full range and spectrum of housing. And you've heard, whether it was provincially when it was introduced, the term affordable housing, the term attainable housing, all these terms have been thrown around with various definitions. When I talk about affordable housing, I sort of use the qualifier of what I deem true affordable housing. It's how we define it as the service manager. So it's housing that we provide, but it's housing that we also provide that is geared to income as part of that definition. It's not one that just generally based on, our area, it's generally affordable for anybody. And I know you can appreciate that sort of range and demand for housing is so broad-based and extreme, but quite proud that this pledge will address and try to cover the full range as part of the strategy. But I think it's a real distinction with Kawartha Lakes and maybe a handful of others out there that are pledging. Lastly, I'll just sort of say, as part of the pledge, we wanted to be explicit and say, we can't do it alone. I mean, although you are the approval authority for planning and development, for growth, and you make many decisions to help support that, the infrastructure as I discussed, But we can't do it alone. We rely on provincial funding. We rely on provincial services that support our population and that future incoming population as well. And so we wanted to use the opportunity of the pledge to remind the province of that. We're a partner in this. We're not the lead alone. And so ongoing, even in our work with the growth management strategy that I talked about previously, it outlined that we need some of these provincial investments as well. Things like regional transit. I mean, especially when you're looking at major urban centers, we need to connect into this greater Toronto area. We need to connect into Peterborough. We need to move people and goods locally as well. So investments in those transit connections have been ongoing advocacy, but I think it's really important that we leverage that advocacy now and remind the province of the need for it. Other major institutions that are provincially funded, led, our healthcare system, obviously. I've heard unanimously from this council through various conversations and the need for that investment back in our healthcare system as the population and growth comes here. The college is a significant institution locally that I think we could maximize our partnership that we already have established with them and leverage looking at local workforce development, training and development. Again, provincially, in order to accommodate this, we need to make sure that in tandem, we are supporting the trades that are required to actually build that housing as well. We've also talked at length previously about ongoing investments in provincial highways. Some of them are arteries through or surrounding our major growth areas. So they need to be upgraded to accommodate this, current population and also the future growth that's there. And then there's just other items that I think it's important that we remind that the province is either a partner in, helps us fund, or leads in various scales. But this is a listing of ones that typically we are a part of that service delivery. So childcare spaces, community and supportive housing, our long-term care and long-term care beds, all of our emergency services, but essentially sort of capturing, it's not just, one and done. You don't just sort of say, hey, we're going to build this year 400 units. There's an incremental and a group or partnership effort that's needed to invest in all of this. And so, Mr. Mayor, going to just conclude on a couple of next steps, and then certainly happy to answer any questions here and or with you on the report itself. I mentioned that our current in-year target, we're at about 79%. Achieving that, hopefully we can get across the line with the extra one by year end. And again, once we know what that means, we'll certainly provide update back to you as council. But essentially, how we're interpreting it today, whatever that amount is or ability to receive some funding, it's meant to reinvest back into the critical infrastructure that the province has defined to help realize this growth and development ongoing. So stay tuned for that. I would suggest that there will be recommendations made once we know about that fund better. There's other funds as well, either traditional, and we want to look at as part of our financial approach and strategies, how do we reprioritize some of that expenditure to ensure that we're investing properly. There was a recent announcement for a funding program that was, let me just get the Enabling Water Systems grant funding, and it was to support immediate investments in water systems, water-related systems, to support this growth that the province has put out. So we're reviewing that grant to see what eligibility we might have. I mentioned about the readiness, and I want to talk a little bit about just a couple of key things. So financially, in the report, we've actually recommended an immediate financial strategy or approach, which is to rescind our current development charges deferral policy, which essentially allows or offers options for development to defer their payment of those development charges to a future year or for a certain time period. And there's limitations to it. It is provided as an appendix in your report. But as you can appreciate, and as I just described, if we don't start to collect, cost recover for growth, and then invest that immediately, the time lag, we're not going to get there in time. We're not going to be able to catch up. And so essentially the rationale for rescinding the deferral policy is just that. We need to start collecting for growth as growth is occurring and is approved so that we can invest that development charge money, which is for growth specifically, back into that critical infrastructure. And we can talk about that more at the report if there's any questions there. I mentioned transformational infrastructure. So again, if you don't have a water plant, you don't have a sewage plant that's going to support the growth, we're done. It stops there. So not only are we accelerating our master servicing planning into next year to finalize, but in the budget, as I mentioned, we're proposing EA work start in 2024 for another expansion to the Lindsay plants. And process improvements, finally. So ongoing, we're accelerating things, right? And as you can appreciate, we've talked about resources, but we want to start to shift to electronic approvals, for example. We want to get much more detailed in terms of reporting, in terms of capacity measuring, all of these things to make sure that we are on target moving forward. And lastly, as sort of, I'll say it indirectly, but it really comes with the pledge, is the ability for Strong Mayor powers to be utilized here and for any of the other pledging municipalities. We're reviewing that legislation as well and ongoing, both internally with neighbors, with others that are impacted, obviously with the mayor directly. Over the coming months, we'll be bringing forward recommendations on implementing those various pieces, recommending any process changes or policy changes that you need to make to accommodate that new legislation. So stay tuned for that. In fact, we will be, as of next week, when we bring forward the capital budget and kick off deliberations, we'll talk to you a little bit more about the Strong Mayor powers as they relate to budgets specifically. And that legislation is in effect now. So it was retroactive. So we want to have regard to it even in our process for the budget this year. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll conclude. And again, happy to answer any questions and or talk about the report.
Thank you. And thank you for all the work you and staff did in putting this together. I think it's just a good piece of work. It is another step along the path. It's one more step that we have to take when we made the decision, well, even going back to the last term of council when MZOs got on the agenda, and then we moved into, were we going to commit to the 6,500, and were we going to commit to Strong Mayor powers in order to be able to tap into the funding that we know we need in order to do this infrastructure. The other critical component to me is that we need to do this in order to meet our affordable housing targets. And that is a critical piece. Those affordable housing targets, we know what we're faced with. We have a waiting list of almost 10 years. We've got to get those shovels in the ground to get these units built. And all of this is part and parcel. I have quite a lineup of councillors here who want to ask you questions, but I want you to know that staff and myself are committed that we want to move forward with this, that we want to commit to these 6,500 units, and that a good portion of those are going to be affordable housing, as the CAO described, based on income and not based on a market assessment. So with that, I'll turn it over, and Councillor Smeaton, you have a question.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, could we have the slideshow back up, please? Thank you. Just, I think it's the second last slide. That's why when I saw you clicking, I thought, it'll just keep right to the end, and then I think it was the second last slide. So it'll be in quite a few slides. I can come back to it. Sorry about that. There. Thank you. I have a question, and then I need that slide. So slide 8 of the Water Master Plan presentation shows 5,260 units until we're at 100% capacity for our current water treatment facility. And this pledge is 6,500. So just to sum up something you said in this presentation is, that math means for constituents, it's guaranteed you're going to see a new water treatment facility being built very, very soon. It's impossible to meet the 2031 target without a new water treatment facility. So I'm just thinking of the questions I get asked. That math is correct so far, right? Those numbers would be correct? 5,260 units until we're at 100%.
Through the mayor, you are correct. I want to preface them a little bit deeper though, or maybe just increase the sense of urgency. So you're right, at 100%, sure, you're at 5,000 plus. We don't plan for structures or services like that. We actually plan, in this case, to an 80%.
85%, yeah.
So in simple math, we got about 3,000 units that we can accommodate today, approximately.
Yep. No, it's the urgency I'm trying to stress.
If we don't start now, we almost need to double.
We're on the same page. It's the urgency.
It's even more than you're suggesting, but yes, your math is.
And we're saying as a council that this pledge will enable us to do that. Because that's the question I get all the time, and this is where I'm going to this slide. What I see in the community the most, and I just want to articulate so I have it today, is when the general public asks questions, it's almost always about the province, even though they don't realize it. So I articulate this, and I say, we're okay if we get going now. Our city is planning for that extra water treatment facility. We're aware of it. In fact, we have a CAO who's saying, it's urgent time, folks. Let's go. Let's rescind a few things and get the cash flow. The questions they ask are the same ones I have, and it is, where is the guaranteed provincial commitment? I'm hearing in this pledge the guaranteed municipal commitment. We will do this, 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 and this. 1/5 affordable housing. Awesome. Everything's great. And I go down each one of those, and I don't see a tick sheet anywhere that says, we, the province, commit to this so that you can. I see it as cart before the horse every time. I see us saying, let's go, with something at the end of a rainbow. Like, where is the guarantee that this will be there? People ask us, okay, that's great, Eric. Where's the hospital? Guaranteed? And the answer I keep getting is, well, that's up to the province, right? We've heard this for a year. So is there somewhere that we're going to be guaranteed with this pledge that is bang on the mark on our end, that they're coming through on their end? Because I heard a comment such as, we still have to see the details of the Building Faster Fund. I mean, we're committing to a pledge, and we don't even have the details from these guys as to what the fund is, let alone a guarantee that we're going to have that hospital or healthcare or. The only thing I would say we can guarantee is the schools, because that fits in within actual development paradigms. But it makes me incredibly nervous. So do we have any guarantee to this, or are we the ones doing all the legwork again, guaranteeing to the public we can get things if?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, there is no commitment today from the province to sort of meet these markers. And I mentioned so let me back up a little bit. This pledge that we're recommending or putting forward is our pledge. It's the city's pledge to meet the targets to 31. What we are recommending is use that opportunity to expose those other investments, either critical or certainly to serve that incoming population, that are needed outside of our control. It's out of our control. It's out of our jurisdiction. Majority of those pieces that you just described. But what I can say is that all of these, we didn't just pull them out of the air. This has been a decade in some cases of advocacy already. And as we were growth planning and looking to meet targets previously that the province imposed on us, we've consistently said if we're going to meet and exceed those numbers, province, you need to invest in these pieces. And again, so there's not a commitment at the end of the day. I certainly wouldn't speak for the province. At the same time though, I don't want to suggest that there's nothing. I think that these are based on active advocacy, pieces that have maybe been invested in and maybe need to be accelerated over a period of time. But the pledge document, whether we approve it locally or not, won't sort of advance these commitments. But what they are doing, in my mind, is exposing province. We want to be a partner. These are areas that you can strongly invest locally here and make a difference and support that growth moving forward.
Okay, so on that note, may I follow up quickly? The MZO that was issued that we all in January, I think it was, where it was a 9-0 for the Flato development on 36, where we said no, and then it was circumnavigated, came back, and the MZO was approved by previous minister. The current Minister Calandra has been publicly quite frequently rescinding some of those MZOs, going back and saying we're going to take some of this back. Not just Greenbelt MZOs, but MZOs. So when I read this, I got nervous. Is there any way that that decision that was unanimous is going to sort of all of a sudden be tacitly, well, maybe we will so that we meet numbers? That wouldn't happen, right? That's a firm decision. Any decisions we've made regarding no's, like on this council's no's, they're not going to all of a sudden become coming back so that we can meet target numbers. Would that be correct?
That is a loaded one, for sure.
See, it's
No,
a
I'm
legitimate
kidding.
question.
I'm kidding.
That's a public question. Are we going to be standing up to, sorry.
I apologize. I'm saying that in the context of the government is revisiting a lot of different decisions that are out there. I understand that they are reviewing all minister zoning orders that the minister, past or current, has issued. It's more in the context of reviewing them to see if they are actually advancing their commitment provincially to meet that overall target. So they've asked for some information. We're providing that back. I just brought back to this slide again because so the 10,000 units is the accumulation of all of the minister zoning orders that were approved by a minister, and they're all in Lindsay and surrounding area. The majority of those, in fact, all of them, save and except the last one that you mentioned, were previous council endorsed, supported, were part of our planning. The latest or the last amendment, which I believe is about 4,000 of the 10,000 units, that was the one that you were suggesting was not endorsed by council, but was subsequently approved. The province, I think, is reviewing all of the MZO decisions that they made. I don't think they're isolating any particulars at this point. I guess the reason I came back here is it's almost like, remember the number that we started with, right? We're trying to work to 6,500 units in 7 years, but we have over 17,000, inclusive of those MZOs, committed. We cannot, accommodate all of those 17,000 anywhere near by 2031. But we certainly can, a portion of them, and in fact, we've already committed to 6,500 of those, so a third of them. I don't know if that helps sort of with your context, but I would suggest that regardless of any decisions from the province, yes, it might reduce the total numbers that are out there, but it is not going to change or waver any in terms of what we would meet in the next 7 years.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Smeaton, for, actually recognizing the frustrations that we are having and how we are sitting around this table and want to be cognitive and provide the best for our residents that are here now and where we're going. My question is regarding perhaps the report coming up is the recommendation that council has to rescind the policy that's effectively in place now. And it's based on that impact of collecting those DCs, right? So we can move forward and be a little bit more cognizant when it comes to those budget processes, such as the operational impacts, the asset impacts, the staff that we're going to need. And also, it has to align with our growth strategy and our long-term financials and all our strategies. I'm just wondering, as we're moving through this, council's going to need to amend this process now. Am I correct when it comes to budgeting? On that policy change, we need to actually make that change now and not drag it out.
So through the mayor, so you're correct. I mean, the recommendation of staff is you should rescind the policy now. Again, we can talk about some of the details or the rationale for it. And again, I don't want to, let me back up one. We think it should be done now so that we can proactively collect for those funds, fees and charges through DCs that we would have as these housing starts launch, because we need to invest back. And so it is a burden on our books to defer these collections overall. Either we're going into debt to do those critical items up front, and then we're cost recovering and paying back later. And again, remember, these are the ones that we're realizing the growth. DCs are to get to a long-term horizon of all of the growth that we're anticipating. So in any given year, we're only collecting back a fraction of it. So anything that we're doing to push it out further just creates a higher sense of urgency. So that would be sort of one piece to it. I should have said that, and we could talk about it again if there's any other questions. This program, though, was excellent at the time. And so I don't want to lose that in sort of translation. It's been in place for about 5 years. It was demanded pre-pandemic. It was very supportive during the pandemic because there was so many different constraints 5 years ago. And so for smaller legacy, maybe some mid-sized developments, they took advantage of it. We haven't seen the same uptake that we did in the first 2 to 3 years anyways. So we're thinking that the stars are aligned in essence. It is a good time, I would suggest, for you to rescind the policy now. I can't recall exactly, I'll say about 30 developments took advantage of it over that period of time. And again, it did help kickstart or at least manage some housing starts. We're not hearing the same demand and even need for it in most cases. So this is why the recommendation's in front of you now.
Councillor Joyce.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to compliment staff on a very well-written report. Call it a 28-page executive summary. I think it's great. It's a couple questions, and you did say it's a draft, so we can still make a change, correct? To the report?
Correct. It's in draft.
Excellent.
You can approve it, and you can amend it as you see
So
fit.
My question is, on that slide, actually, of the 7,100 active applications, how much percentage-wise roughly is that Lindsay-centric? And the same question on the MZO, 10.6 thousand units.
I won't do it justice. I'll start with the easy one. The MZOs are almost entirely Lindsay or extended beyond boundaries of Lindsay. So I would say that's 100%. The 7,000 units, I'll just liken it more general to about 80% of development that's forecasted will be in Lindsay in that expanded area anyway.
Fall back to the 80-20 rule is always a good way. It's safe. No, I just was curious more than anything. Thank you. The one change I really want to make, and it's not, I know you put up a cribbed slide deck here. In our package, it's slide number 25. And I'll just read it here. As the City of Kawartha Lakes embarks on this journey, tandem partnership and planning with the province is essential. The following areas require provincial alignment and investment that need to coincide with the growth. And there's 5 very important bullet points. I'd like to add a 6th. Although it says investment in Ross Memorial Hospital and corresponding health system service capacity requirements, what I'd like to see here is the 6th bullet says investment in primary care. And primary care professionals, including family physicians, nurse practitioners, chiropodists, dietitians, and other related primary care healthcare providers. I really think we need to pull that out and make a statement there in this plan.
Counselor, you're referencing the report, right?
Yes.
Yeah. If we can stick to the presentation and then we'll get to the report after.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Warren, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for the presentation. And I did reach out to the CAO. I know I've heard and read that some of the municipalities are going through target changes through the province. So the question is, do we have to do it today? Do we have to make that resolution today? Or can we wait because it seems like things are changing? That's my first question.
So through you, Mr. Mayor. So my understanding, the targets for any municipalities are not changing. You are definitely spot on and correct, though, that over the last several weeks, maybe a couple of months, the new minister has been reviewing previous decisions of that ministry. And they started with dialing back commitments specifically in the Greenbelt and rescinding those approvals for development lands in the Greenbelt. Their next, or the minister's next area of review was official plans that were approved by the ministry, which essentially created new urban boundaries in certain municipalities. And what the councillor, I believe, is referencing is rescinding of some of those approvals by the ministry to expand urban boundaries. And there was about a dozen municipalities that were listed as part of that. That happened a few weeks ago. The next area of review is now looking at minister zoning orders that were issued by the province. Again, I don't know what the review entails entirely, what the outcomes will be. My read of it currently, at least, isn't necessarily to rescind approvals, but that could happen. The minister can do as they wish. But it was to revisit those MZOs that were issued and looking at their status in the context of meeting the housing targets by the province. And I think the Premier, and if not a minister, essentially used the term use it or lose it type of thing. And that's what the review is right now that they're doing. And if there's no movement on those files, I suspect then they may consider rescinding some of those approvals. That's all that's known out there currently, but in terms of housing pledges and strong mayor powers flowing through those and the Building Faster Fund, those are unwavering. Those haven't changed that I understand even up to today's review.
Thank you for that, and that explains it a bit better. But we'll see going forward. I know we're at the pleasure of the province, but maybe the province will see the light. But are a couple quick questions. Are we going to speed up our servicing studies to meet this growth? I saw that, you know, we have a I guess water and wastewater servicing study, and it's 2025. Are we going to speed that up to be able to move forward?
So through the mayor, the master servicing plan that the councillor is referencing, there will be some acceleration to it in a sense that we're targeting completion of that exercise next year, so in 2024. That's the overall servicing review that we would look at all water, wastewater plants through. I also mentioned in the budget for 2024, we were looking at including the environmental assessment process specifically to be kickstarted and the studies that go along with that to have some immediate traction on expansion to the wastewater and water plants.
Great, thank you. And just quickly, I know the federal government is making some announcements today. So I'm wondering if staff, if things like the FCM, green, or housing, I think they have housing now. We're on top of that to see if we can get some funding for capital. So just a statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the CAO, thanks for the presentation. Just two quick questions. We got a lot of figures here thrown out. Just for rounding off purposes, we've got about 16,000 units here between the active applications and the MZOs, and some of those MZOs may or may not be rescinded. And then in the language here, you have the word starts, and it's kind of confusing because could you define what you mean by starts? Does that mean, when you say starts, is that through the process, does that mean that they've been fully approved, or these are just forecasted? Because starts is a kind of a vague term that to me anyways, I'm just wondering if you could clarify that, please.
Sure, through the mayor, thanks for the question. So yeah, the units that I have described on the slide are more concept, maybe is an easier way to say it. I would not consider any of that 17,000 as being a housing start. A housing start means a building permit was issued. And so in essence, it has full approvals. That is what the province is measuring the targets. So it's not based on the MZOs or the numbers generally there. You need to have a building permit issued. In fact, I'm still reviewing the legislation. I really believe they want it to be constructed. But the problem is that there's no measure or marker post building permit to maybe formalize it. So again, I consider a housing start when a building permit's been issued. The idea is that shortly thereafter, construction will commence.
Okay, thanks. And the second question is, with the developers that you work with, and you know, I don't deal with a lot of developers. It's mainly a mom and pop sort of a applicant that I deal with, who find it very frustrating, and they can't seem to get it off the ground to get an application, say an acre lot for a 100-acre farm or something like that. But anyways, that's another issue. But it's an important issue. But do you talk to these developers and say that you know, you're going to basically? I'll give you an example. Tribute Homes, which I was over there. It's developing now, but you've got basically it's a small city in a certain area. Are they going to commit to themselves that they're going to build a medical center and a school, and they're going to chip in for the servicing? Are they going to do this? Are we dictating to them, or are we going to ask them nicely, you know, can you chip in a bit more to help out with the infrastructure? Because it's more than just pipes in the ground. It's you know, it is schools and medical centers, and the list went on that you bring in. Plus, we don't know whether half of, you know, whether a lot of this is going to be immigration too. So, but anyways, just getting back to that, do we do we ask these developers to help financially in a way that will take the burden off the taxpayer here locally?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm glad you reminded me sort of one of the themes in the slides overall that is unwavering. It's current, but it will be with the pledge, is that, and I think I said it in the report, growth should pay for growth. So I want to start with that because the overall in the pledge, we're very much looking at, when I say cost recovery, I'm talking about the growth share components and making sure that growth essentially pays for growth. And again, that term is thrown around quite a bit, but for the fundamentals, for that critical infrastructure, we need to make sure that we're collecting development charges to make sure that that new infrastructure is paid for by growth.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, and I'll just conclude on this sort of pledge doesn't change sort of fundamentally your overall processes and structure, right, to supporting growth. We have things like development charges. Growth we will collect for the proportionate shares, and there's prescribed processes to do that.
Okay, just final. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say the conventional planning programs. I mean, we zone, we designate land to accommodate as part of these forecasts other services, but we don't go to a developer and say, if you're going to develop, you have to also build a medical center, or you have to also, that we just don't have that in the prescribed processes. But what we do have is the ability to make conditions so they invest back in what the growth is requiring and that we offer. So again, things like pipes in the ground and that sort of critical infrastructure I talked about.
Oh, okay, and the final question. Why is it that we have to incorporate special mayor's powers to make this work? Can it not work without that?
So through the mayor, the city has never requested or asked for the change. It was attached to the imposed forecasts and the pledge. So essentially it said, if you're committed to meeting the homes, the targets, then the province will impose or offer strong mayor powers to support that. Locally, you could choose how you wish to enact them, but it's provincial legislation. So again, we're not making any requests for, against, or anything in between. They're there. And the province is saying you have them. So we still have to implement them. We have to respect them. And that's what the next review is, but was never at the request of this council in order to pledge for the housing that was forecasted.
Councillor Perry.
Thanks very much, Mayor. Briefly, CAO, the understanding from the presentation, at least my understanding, is that the city would receive provincial funds each year or soon thereafter, that it meets at least 80% of the targets. Is that correct? And I know that we lost development charge capacity due to Bill 23, correct? And I think Director Bukaboom was saying perhaps up to 20%, but we'd have to see. Does that funding that we would get for reaching targets, is it less than, equal to, or more than the money we've lost or we'll be losing on development charges?
Through you, Mayor, I can't imagine it would be equal to the loss. Quite frankly, I mean, we have to do the better math when the fund is formalized. But as we're starting to see the pieces, I mean, I hate throwing out numbers, but you're kind of in an order of magnitude of a couple $1 million probably annually if you met and exceeded targets. Again, it will be reinvested back into some critical infrastructure, but by no means I would suggest it's meant to fill that gap in terms of the loss.
But not being equal to, as you mentioned. So let me see if I got this straight then. Bill 23, the province diminished and reduced, took away our capacity for development charges. and now is saying you have to build to certain levels to receive possibly a fraction of that money back. Is that correct? Do I have that right?
I would say you have it right. I would put a caveat, though, that, again, development charges are very specific. So the revenue that we're losing is based on certain development. You still have the ability to impose development charges in areas that are directly supporting growth. And we'll come back to you with a sort of update. But in a general practical sense, you're spot on. It's not going to fill the gap.
Oh, thank you. I just want to make sure we called that out. Thank you.
Councillor Smeaton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just piggybacking on Deputy Mayor Richardson earlier. So $60 million less DC charges as a result of Bill 23. That's a number. And you mentioned about if we rescind this policy, I understand that it's one of the mitigating the effects of Bill 23 that you're referring to. I just wondered about the DC task force. And it's never met this year. And I still see maybe even ironically more value than before in at least having a few meetings with that group to see this process as it sort of dovetails and changes and transforms so we can see what once was and what now is. Is that a possibility for, so to sit with Carl and Carmine and those people that were sitting that have the knowledge, would it make sense to bring back that DC task force? Because we haven't met for a year. So that I can educate the public on exactly these transitions as they're happening? Or I was curious your thoughts on that.
So we will be reactivating an update to our current development charges. Very active. It'll be about a one-year program. It'll kickstart again in 2024 in order to get a DC, an updated development charge bylaw in place in early 2025. So that's going to happen, and it's going to include sort of work with the task force as prescribed by council. I honestly would almost look at this deferral policy as separate and distinct. It's essentially, it's not saying don't pay your charges, it's just when. That's it. It really just prescribes when. It has a sort of a couple of options. I believe in the longest case scenario, you can defer payment up to 3 years, but you have to make some incremental payments in between. The reality is, though, if large-scale development invokes that deferral, the order of magnitude for that sort of collection and the timing to invest back, it snowballs these delays. And so, again, I think when you just sort of weigh the pros and cons, it is a good strategy that council should really consider rescinding the policy. It's a related policy. It's not changing the bylaw, and it won't change what developers have to pay, either now or in an updated process. Okay.
Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, and thank you to you, CAO, and all the councillors around the table today asking these questions. So in a nutshell, I'm thinking, we're looking at rescinding the development charges assistant policy. So in essence, the city requires the collection of the DCs to occur earlier in the process in order to finance and accelerate these critical investments that we do need to build the infrastructure that goes with these housing targets. That's kind of where I'm leaning towards just listening to the conversation around today. Am I correct?
You're correct. And again, through the mayor, I want to stress, it's only the timing of payment. We're not recommending right now to dial it back different from normal circumstances. All we're saying is collect the development charges at building permit or when your subdivision is registered, and that's what's applied. The only difference is they can't defer it beyond those times for the specified periods of time.
Great, and I really think, at this time, we need to move ahead with that because it has to be now. It is risk management, exactly what you're saying right now. So for me, I think at this time, to make the proper infrastructure investments in a more timely fashion, we do need to move forward with this change. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to receive the presentation by CAO. Councillor Smeaton and Councillor Warren. All in favor? And that's passed. Moving on, item 8.1.1 is the Municipal Housing Pledge Strategy, and it's the report. So are there any questions or comments on the report? Councillor Joyce.
Okay, now I can. Eh? All right. Second time I've done this, I actually jumped ahead. Sorry about that. So yeah, if we can, do you have page 25 available?
Yeah.
All right.
I don't have it on.
Not up, okay.
Sorry, through the mayor. I don't have it on the screen. I appreciate sort of the comment. It was related to page 25, talking about provincial investments.
So I just feel a very key element here is primary care. It's we're already, as we all know, a severe lack of family doctors and other primary care professionals that go with that, including nurse practitioners, chiropodists, dietitians, mental health professionals, et cetera, et cetera. With this growth, it's just going to get that much worse. So it's imperative that the province does align and invest in that need to coincide with growth. And I'd love to see, please, a bullet point to emphasize that in here so it's not forgotten, and we continue to pressure the province to invest in primary care.
If I could then, through the mayor, I'll use this opportunity just to remind that this is going to be council's housing pledge. So it's your pledge. So I'm assuming the mayor would be amenable. I would suggest, without having an actual formality in the resolution, we will commit to, but before we finalize the document and send it to the ministry, we'll incorporate language that refers to primary care as part of that provincial investment expected, if the mayor's amenable to that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Councillor Yeo.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. And great conversation, great questions. But how can we finalize this and send it to the ministry when they're obviously making it up as they go? So I don't think we have the answers to, I know it's our pledge, but what are we basing our pledge on? Unknowns, ARUs, and how much money we're going to get, and all these questions. So when is this going to go to the ministry? Is this going to go to the ministry after we get those answers? Or are we just going to put some blind faith in and send it off to them? So, like, this is bull. Like, they're not giving us any answers to put our stuff on. And I shorten the word bull, but you're welcome.
So through the mayor, and I certainly appreciate the comments. I guess a couple things. I guess firstly, personally, at least, I'm quite confident that the pledge essentially is a local solution. It's tested sort of through our current planning, through our growth management, through sort of what we were already forecasting. And quite frankly, it's probably a very strong local voice or commitment to say, regardless of the game or what the province process or lack of process is, here's what we're doing locally, and this is what we're committed to doing, as well as some of the advocacy or expectations of the province. So I really think it's informed by current local positions, by current plans that are there. And we're not picking numbers out of the air. We're quite confident that that 6,500 units at least could be achieved locally, irrespective of what the province really did or does. It definitely means we have to think differently or shift priorities over a period of time. But I think it's really reflecting a local solution and local ability to commit to it. I didn't catch, maybe I'll ask if I answered the question entirely, but if there was a follow-up or something that I missed, happy to supplement.
No, it's a thank you through you again, Mr. Mayor. I take pride in the answer you gave because you're right, it is local, but in my mind, it's based on a lot of unknowns from the ministry side, I guess. And I know we shouldn't at times worry ourselves with what the ministry's doing. And on something this big, it's got to be worrisome. And it is worrisome to me in creating our pledges. We don't get sideswiped down the road. And that's my only fear. So, and this is absolutely behind this pledge 100%. I just going in with my pointy ears up, waiting for that big announcement that, oh, we're changing direction again, because they're making it up as they go along, and there's no two ways about that. So I appreciate the answer, and I'm behind it 100%. Just with my spidey senses are tingling. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ashman.
Thank you. Through you to the CAO. On page of the report, on page 23, we have the community of Bobcaygeon, Fenelon Falls, part of Lindsay, and Omemee that's still under appeals. City official plan was approved in 2012. That's 11 years ago, and we still haven't got these sorted out yet. So would it not be prudent to sort of get our own, for lack of better words, house in order and get these things dealt with first before we take on a mammoth project here ahead? And, you know, as Councillor Yeo had said, a lot of these projections are based on a lot of unknowns. And, you know, it's to me, I'm almost of the opinion, this is a difficult one, whether we could defer this or not. But anyways, I'll get to that in a second. But how can we move ahead if we haven't dealt with things that have been lingering for 11 years and people waiting to get development, specifically in the smaller towns? And that's the frustrating part of this. How are we going to deal with this, please?
So through the mayor, I guess firstly, positively, I would suggest that we are methodically closing off on these secondary plan issues that are lingering out there. 2 were approved quite recently, being Lindsay, Fenelon. There is that sort of phased approach to round out that work. I would suggest that they will be resolved by 2024. So I think we're well on our way. Those structures, though, whether they're past or the current, are still good, relevant documents to at least inform and manage the growth in those respective communities. So again, I honestly believe there's no risk in pledging. You know, you've already committed as a council to meet the target. This is the how and the pathways or the things that we would need collectively to maximize or realize that and exceed it. So again, we're pulling from existing initiatives, things that we're already doing, and then looking at future investments and things that we could do maybe a little bit differently. So I don't think there's any risk in identifying those. And I guess I'll just briefly conclude. Those secondary plans will be in place to inform the development within this horizon to 2031.
Okay, just finally, please, Mr. Mayor. A lot of these people are going to need employment here, and a couple of years ago we brought in a new rule that dropped development charges for commercial, and that spurred a lot of growth. And is this going to be? Are we looking at rescinding that as well, or this is just going to be for the residential development charges?
Through the mayor, there's no recommendations in front of you today to change the structure of how development charges are paid or who pays them. The only consideration you have today is to rescind deferring the payments. Commercial developments, whatever you're describing in terms of reductions or incentives, they remain. Those will be reviewed in that next cycle of development charges when we update the bylaw in their entirety. So that'll be kick-started next year, and it will be a 2025 update to the DC.
Thank you.
Councillor Smeaton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll just finish with saying that I have one question. One of the more profound pieces to this pledge was that a quarter of it is for affordable housing, pretty much a quarter, a little bit less. And I just wondered about the 930 of the 1,500 affordable housing. Are we guaranteeing that? Because we desperately need to. Like, is that in that pledge? We're going to be able to uphold that and make sure that that funding model is in place for those people that are so desperate, because we've heard it, we're seeing it every day and we're hearing it every day. So that's a pretty significant number, 930 out of the 1,500 affordable housing homes. That allocation of rent, guaranteed, that's what we're committing to. It seems like a great number, and I just want to make sure that on the record, that's what we're going to do, because that's a big number and it's great.
So through the mayor, I'm glad you asked the question, just to be crystal clear for clarification. So in the slide and what was presented talks about our current need. And in our current housing and homelessness plan, it targeted over a 10-year span, so essentially to 2031, the numbers that Councillor Smeaton is describing. We are going to come back to you in 2024 with a mid-plan refresh and update, because we need to make sure the numbers sync, make sure that that is truly the target, not just to 2031, but then it would extend beyond to a 10-year horizon. And I think it's important because I don't want people to walk away. We're saying 1,500 units are required. We're not pledging, or you wouldn't be pledging in here, that 1,500 of the 6,500 are going to be true affordable housing. We're going to refine that number, but what I want you to leave with is a commitment that a portion of the 6,500 will be explicit and will be true affordable housing units as defined by the service manager. So refinement to come, but a significant portion still, I think, should be a target of this council and this community to building as part of that overall spectrum or range of housing types.
Councillor Warren.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So just on what Councillor Smeaton said, and the CAO said true affordable housing. So is that rent geared to income? Because we throw out that verbiage of affordable housing, and it really doesn't become affordable. So I look forward to seeing that come forward. But in the report, it highlights, the federal government, giving monies and grants and whatever moving forward. But maybe I missed it. But is there anything in the report asking the Ontario government, provincial government, for capital funding for not-for-profits and truly affordable housing?
Through the mayor, I don't recall in the pledge document sort of that specific statement. What is sort of pledged, if you will, it's really not pledged because it's not our jurisdiction, but it is advocacy to the province that they need to invest in supportive housing, in what we deem, again, true affordable housing. That definition is in the pledge document itself. They already invest some funds to capital builds related to it. Again, I should have also said the pledge is provincial facing, but Councillor Warren is absolutely right. This is a full court press where CMHC or other federal or other grants, wherever they may be, can contribute to this. We're going to pursue them. And so again, although the federal investment is just as important, it's not explicit in the pledge because it's a pledge to the province and leveraging their resources.
Thank you.
Thank you. So would anyone like to make the motion on this report? Deputy Mayor Richardson, Councillor Joyce.
If I could just clarify, Mr. Mayor, if it's the recommendation as presented through you, I just wouldn't mind making one distinction or amendment that in the second recommendation, it says that City Council endorses, should change that word to that City Council approves the housing pledge as outlined in the report. It is your jurisdiction to do that, and so it would be an approval request, not an endorsement.
Are the mover and seconder fine with that?
With the change requested, yes.
Thank you. All in favor? And that passes. Thank you. We'll take 10 minutes. Let's come back at 5 after, okay? Okay, moving on in the agenda, we have item 9 is Committee of the Whole, 9.1, correspondence regarding Committee of the Whole recommendations. I don't believe we have any correspondence. Therefore, we'll move on to that the minutes of the November 7th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting be received, and the recommendations included in section 9.3 of the agenda be adopted, save and accept 93112, 9316, 9322, 9323, and 9325. I have a mover and seconder. Councillor Yeo, Councillor Smeaton. All in favor? And that's passed. So our first extraction, 9312, is the tree preservation bylaw. Councillor Ashmore and Councillor Perry had that. So I'll start with Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question was, because there wasn't any report or any attachments, my question was, have we come to any sort of a figure as to how much it would cost for this proposed bylaw to be, the staff that would be hired, and also would there be public meetings as well?
Ms. Carlson.
Yes, thank you. This is early days. We are looking just to go out to consultation at this point, at which time it would give me a little more opportunity to determine staffing implications. Our early estimates indicate that we would need a team of at least 2 individuals and 1 fleet vehicle. One would be a position that would administer the program itself. The second position would be more of the technical expert, your arborist, that would come out and assist to determine if trees are, in fact, hazard trees or diseased trees. And then your vehicle would assist the arborist in attending the site. So those are our early indications, but I will bring back more comprehensive numbers in 2024.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mayor. My only comment was a request to amend the motion on the face of the record to include, in addition to advancing the report for consultation to Williams Treaty First Nations, that Schedule A and B also be forwarded to the Peterborough and District Métis Council. Thank you.
Ms. Carlson, did you hear that?
I did. There's absolutely no problem with that. I was planning to do it. So thank you. Thank you for that correction.
Thank you. Would one of you like to move the report?
Yeah, I'll move it, Mr. Mayor.
I will, as amended, correct, Mayor?
Yep. Any other comments? Councillor Warren.
It's just seconding it.
Okay, thanks. All in favor? And that passes. Next item is item 9316, Councillor Ashmore, proposed heritage designation of 1 King Street East.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to add a further that. It would basically be a third of that, and I didn't get this in the last time. And that would be that the proposed heritage designation be deferred until additional consultation with the owner of the subject property is completed by staff. That's all. It was similar to what we did with the 35 Bolton Street in Bobcaygeon. It's very similar, and the owner has asked for this. If I could get a support for this, appreciate it.
Yeah, my only issue with it is that we're deferring it for consultation And the motion is to tell staff to go ahead and start the process and consult. So we're deferring the consultation, and then we're going to come back, and they're going to go out and consult. So, anyway, see if you can get a seconder for this motion. Is there a seconder? Councillor Yeo. So do you want to speak to it?
Yes, this was, Councillor Warren actually did the same thing, and I give her certainly credit, had it perfectly worded in her further that for the designation in Bobcaygeon. This one here, I think, to be fair to the owner, they've just asked for a bit of time, consultation with the owner. I think it'd only be fair that we do it on one building in Bobcaygeon, and it could be other ones too, that the owner get their fair time to consult with staff, and then it'll come back to council here and we'll deal with it then. But I just think that there should be some equity here, and we're doing it for some other ones. And I support the one at Bobcaygeon that's going to go back to staff, but I just looking for staff or looking for council support. More importantly, the owner is looking for support. They're not dead set against it, but they just want to be consulted, and they just wanted that extra time to discuss this with our heritage staff.
Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you. I just want just some further clarification, because I was under the understanding that if we pass the resolution today, then that actually initiates the consultation process under the Act through staff. So I just wanted to make sure I have the interpretation right.
That's my understanding as well. We have Emily with us. Can you confirm that, please?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I can definitely confirm that. So how the consultation process works is that where we're able to do so, we give a heads up to the property owner ahead of time. In this particular case, for the property in Omemee, I have spoken fairly extensively to the owner, so they know that the property is coming forward for a designation. And then once council passes the resolution that's in this particular report, which is to issue a notice of intention to designate and go through the steps, then we initiate our formal consultation process. So our formal consultation process, there's a letter that we have to provide under the legislation that says council is considering your property for designation, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have a lot of conversations with owners generally when that happens. So usually an owner reaches out to me, says, what does this mean for me? We sit down, we go through it. We often review the bylaw, and then the bylaw comes back to council. That's also the time when an owner can formally object. So you've seen a few of those before. Generally, as I'm sure you've seen with our other designations, we don't really get to that. So I think there's sort of two stages when it comes to consultation. There's the informal heads up that happens up front, and then there's the formal consultation that happens after council passes the resolution. So I can't do that formal consultation and send out that letter until council provides direction. What I can do is I can phone the owner and say, this is coming forward to council. Here's what this means for you. We usually have a chat on the phone, which has been undertaken for this property in Omemee. The difference with the property in Bobcaygeon is that we weren't able to fully have that conversation with the property owner in Bobcaygeon. So I had reached out to the property owner, said this is coming forward. Let's discuss this further, because we weren't able to do it at the time, and we weren't able to have that connection prior to committee of the whole happening for a variety of external reasons. So that's just sort of the difference between the situations and then the conversation that I had with Councillor Warren. So that's kind of where we're at with them and how it works in terms of formal process. But no, we can't do formal consultation, sending out a letter until council directs staff to do so.
Thank you. Am I correct? You have spoken with this owner? You have had a conversation with this owner?
That's correct. So I've spoken to the owner of this property on the phone and let them know that it was coming forward for consideration in November. So when I had spoken to them, I think they were expecting to have some resolution from council today. And once if that resolution is passed and council wants once the formal consultation process to begin. We'll have opportunity to have a more fulsome consultation with the owner, get some stuff in writing, so that letter that we send out to owners, as opposed to the kind of more informal stuff that we do up front before it comes forward.
Thank you. So, Councillor Ashmore, what's your wish?
Well, I mean, I'm disappointed, but, you know, the owner wants to build affordable housing, a few units in that building and maybe the parking lot behind, so this is going to prohibit that. I just feel that, you know, we've got one on the one before in Bob Cajun, which I'm fully in support of. I mean, the language is there, and why it can't be the same as this one here, that the proposed heritage designation be deferred until the additional consultation with the owner of the subject property is completed by staff. We have it in writing, whereas I don't have it in writing, I just have it verbal. So I mean, why is it that we have it in writing for another one, but we don't, we just have it, they always say get it in writing, so I just want to get it in writing, that's the reason. I mean, I take her word for it, but I just think that, I feel strongly about this, that if you put it on one, and it was requested by Councillor Warren, and I fully agreed with it, I just think that if I asked for it, and the owner of it asked for it, I think it's only fair that we put that, further that on this one.
You did hear that she has spoken with the owner.
Well, yes, she spoke with the owner, and the owner is not in agreement of this proposal, so, I mean, it's, I'm confused here as well, because, I mean,
But, well, you have a mover and seconder, so if you want it to go forward, you can sum up and see how council wants to go with it.
Yeah, I'll go ahead with that, with proposing that I put that extra that in, if I could, please.
Okay, so the motion is that we ask Ms. Turner to go and consult with the property owner before she comes back to council. Councillor Perry, that was actually sum up, but go ahead.
Just for clarity, this is happening anyway, is it not, through the traditional heritage process? I see you nodding heads.
Yes. Was that sum up, Councillor Ashmore?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, all in favor? And that fails. Anybody want to move the motion? Councillor Yeo, are you moving the motion? And Councillor Warren, are you seconding it? All in, thank you. Any comments, questions? Did you want to speak to it, Councillor Yeo?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, it's all been said. Consultation has been had, and it will be had some more. So let's vote on it.
Thank you. All in favor? And that passes. Next item is 9322, the request for electronic speed sign program. Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm actually moving as printed because I believe the report addressed the current process of establishing permanent speed boards as part of the traffic calming warrant process as budget allows. This is something I just wanted to put out for council consideration if we were to further provide some further direction to have a report cost come back regarding bringing a standalone speed board program to establish the installation of a set amount of speed boards per year as a part of our traffic calming request. So I just wanted to bring it to council for perhaps another resolution to look for some more enforcement when it comes to speed boards across the city of Kawartha Lakes.
So are you amending the motion?
I would like to add a resolution. I want to move the current one, but I want to bring another one to council for consideration.
Why don't we, do you want to do it as a follow-up?
Sure.
Okay. So you're moving it as printed. Is there a seconder? Councillor Smeaton. All in favor? And that's passed. So do you want to do the follow-up?
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. Just to have staff provide an additional report back regarding the cost to provide a standalone speedboard program to be established, the installation of a set amount of speedboards per year on top of the standard traffic calming warrantship process that we have right now.
Do you have that written down?
I can copy and
Provide it
paste
to
it.
the
Yes.
clerks afterwards, please. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor McDonald. You got a timeline on that?
I'm fine, Q2 2024.
Q2, thank you. All in favor? And that's passed. Next item is item 9323, which is a request for right turn lane on Pigeon Lake Road for Old Surrey Lane and speed sign placement review. Councillor Ashmore and Councillor Joyce. We'll start with Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm okay with this the way it is. I'll just leave it as is to receive it, and that the requests go to the budget process as a consideration decision unit.
Thank you.
I could mention that it could be either 2024 or 2025. It doesn't have to be specifically 2024, but 25.
Councillor Joyce.
Actually, I'd like to move to strike this from the budget process for consideration. If I can get a seconder on that, I'll explain why.
Councillor McDonald. It's just a receive at this point. Do you want to just receive it?
Councillor Ashmore already said to receive and refer as a decision.
Yeah. So Councillor Ashmore is said to receive it and refer it as a decision unit to the budget process.
And I'd like to remove it from the budget process.
Well, you can do that at budget.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a seconder to Councillor Ashmore's motion? Councillor Warren. Any comments or questions? All in favor? And that passes. Get your hands up higher, folks, please. And last but not least, 9325, Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mayor. This is just an update from Committee of the Whole, where I was grateful for Mr. D'Souza's presentation. What was forwarded at Committee of the Whole was that Dock 27 not be removed and that we renew the 5-year lease period from 2023. The motion here only states the first part renewing, the second part renewing the lease for a 5-year term. Both should be included in this resolution moving forward.
So because it doesn't say remove the dock, they're not removing the dock.
But the report had removed the dock.
Sure, I'll just maybe clarify through the mayor. So the current agreement, which you're suggesting is renewed, includes the dock. So by renewing it for 5, it's in. The report is only a recommendation. It didn't get put forward sort of as a recommendation by Committee of the Whole. So by deleting it, the direction is what stands in the current recommendation. It'll be renewed and it will include that additional. I don't believe clarity is necessary because it's in the agreement, as well as it's not directed in any other way. So it would be included as part of the extension.
So if it had stayed then, if the Dock 27 was to stay as per the recommendation of the report from Committee of the Whole, that would have been part of this motion? Or would it simply have been to receive the report, and therefore by receiving the report, it was accepted?
So the recommendation by staff was to renew the license agreement and to not include a certain dock. That last recommendation was not accepted by Committee of the Whole. So only thing put forward, the only action here is receive and renew the agreement as is for another 5 years. I appreciate what you're looking for clarity on the status of that additional dock?
Correct. I mean,
I would suggest
my reading was it had removal, but I'd have to go back and look at it. I just want to make sure
the
it's
original
clear.
recommendation
Yes.
had removal. Committee did not accept that recommendation,
yep.
so it's not an
see.
action that will move forward.
All right, thank you.
Do you want to move?
In that case, I'm fine with it. We're proceeding on consent.
So you're moving it?
I have to now, yeah, okay. I'll move it again. As
Thank you.
printed.
Yes. Seconder? Councillor Smeaton. All in favor? Thank you. That ends Committee of the Whole. We'll move to Planning Advisory. No correspondence. I have a mover and seconder that the minutes of the November 8th, 2023 Planning Advisory Committee meeting be received and the recommendations included in section 10.3 of the agenda be adopted. Councillor Warren, Councillor Deputy Mayor Richardson, all in favor? And that passes. On to consent agendas. And I believe, Councillor MacDonald, you have the consent agenda.
Sorry, through you. That all the proposed resolutions shown in section 11.1 of the agenda be approved and adopted by council in order that they appear in the agenda and sequentially numbered, save and except for items 11.1.1 and 11.1.6.
Thank you. Is there a seconder to that?
Oh, sorry, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you. All in favor? And that's passed. Item 11.1.1, single source for ambulance remounts. Councillor Joyce, that's yours.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, the reason I pulled it out is I'm dead set against 5-year contracts, but after speaking with the chief and staff, it's become a non-issue because we're not going to be doing any more remounts till 2030, so it's a non-issue, so I will move it as printed. The reason I'm not against 5-year contracts, I prefer to see 3-year contracts that can automatically renew, because I understand the single source need here, but in 3 years' time, that vacuum competition can move into that industry, and if we're stuck with a 5-year contract, we're stuck. We don't have that flexibility. But again, it's a non-issue, so move as printed.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Perry. Any comments or questions? Councillor MacDonald, did you?
No, I was just going to.
Thank you. All in favor? And that passes. Item 11.1.6 is Councillor Ashmore, and that's consolidated stop control review at various intersections.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would like to receive it, and everything below would be the same except one change, that yield controls be installed at intersections as outlined in Table 1, Victoria Place. Replace stop with yield, and I'll explain if I can get a seconder.
There's a seconder to that? Councillor Joyce. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, so I brought this up the last meeting, and I've been consulting with Director Rojas, and I would like, if he could, through you, explain our rationale and why it will meet the threshold, it will meet the warrants, even if it's these are yield signs instead of stop signs. And as I mentioned before in the committee, the community has asked for, they appreciate the signs that are going up, but they've asked for yield signs instead of stop signs within this community, not just the residents, but the association itself. And I'll let Director Rojas sort of explain that rationale. Thanks.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So in the report, there's an Appendix A, that outlines the locations of the various stop controls, controls, whether they be yield signs or stop signs. So for table 1, again, it's our past practices to put stop signs in. And that's, granted, it's low volume, and we've had this precedence or this practice in the past where we put stop signs. But in accordance with the Ontario Traffic Manual, a yield sign is suitable at these locations. It's not in line with past practices, but nevertheless, we could accommodate yield signs due to the low volume of road. So both would be applicable, and staff just followed past practices. But there's nothing saying that we can't deviate from that past practice going forward. That's why the resolution is in front of you with both options. Both are acceptable.
Thank you. Is there a second? Did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Joyce, as a seconder?
I guess I'm just curious if we put up yield signs, would there be, with the low volume, can that change over time? Then we have to put in stop signs later.
So generically, it could. So if there's increase in traffic, if there's redevelopment, if there's intensification, which increases the traffic volumes on those streets, it's a possibility that stop signs, it would no longer be low volume, and stop signs would be required over a yield sign. This development is quite small, single-family homes, so the likelihood of redevelopment or intensification within this area is extremely low, but it could happen in the future.
Okay, and I think yield signs would help traffic flow move faster, correct?
Potentially, yes. There wouldn't be the. It's a rolling stop, let's call it, for a yield sign, and it would help traffic, low volume traffic, move faster in a safe and controlled manner. What we don't want to do is do nothing, because right now there is no yield or stop. So the recommendation is to do something.
And the staff recommends yield signs. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Warren.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I know the area quite well, and I don't think it will ever be really redeveloped. So the traffic that's there now should, I support 100% a yield sign. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing none other, all in favor? And that passes. That's the end of consent agenda. Move on to petitions. Item 12.1 is a petition regarding speed limits on Hayes Line. Emily, a copy of the petition with 29 signatures is available at the city clerk's office for viewing, and we had a presentation from Mr. Paul Reed. Deputy Mayor Richardson, what is your wish?
Thank you, and through you, I would like to receive the petition and provide a resolution to have staff reach out and consult with Cavan Monaghan, because it is a shared boundary road. And also at that time, look at the request to install the requested signs in the appropriate places and include a direction to apply a centerline painting at the crest of the hills in which these advisory speed tabs are being placed.
Do you have that in writing that you can provide to?
I sure do.
Thank you. Is there a seconder to that? Councillor McDonald. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that passes. Our next petition is regarding the resurfacing of Sturgeon Glen Road, Fenelon. A copy of the petition with 127 signatures is available at the city clerk's office for viewing. What is your wish, council? Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mayor. This is one of my most heard about roads, and I'd like to thank Mr. Wallace for getting the signatures together. I'd like to make a motion that the petition be received and that the resurfacing of Sturgeon Glen Road be forwarded as a decision unit for consideration in our budget deliberations forthcoming.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Ashmore? Anybody wish to speak to it? Seeing none, all in favor? And that carries. Item 12.3 is a petition regarding the resurfacing of Birch Point Drive and Cliffside Drive. A copy of the petition with 33 signatures is available at the City Clerk's office for viewing. Deputy Mayor Richardson.
Thank you, and through you, I want to move to receive the petition and have Birch Point Road added to the 5 years road plan or be identified in one of our other road programs.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ashmore. Any comments or questions?
All the roads on the Birch Point.
All in favor? And that passes. Other new business, we have none. We do. Memorandum regarding flooding on Loon Street from Lake Scugog Meadows Development. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. I would like to provide a different resolution at this time, which that staff reviews the drainage situation at Lake Scugog Meadows subdivision, Songbird Crescent, especially on the west side concerning South Loon Street, to be considered in a decision unit and left for the 2024 budget, and also the budget, the cost of which comes out of the capital contingency fund or the operating budget. And if I get a second, I'd like to speak to it.
Seconded, Councillor Deputy Mayor Richardson. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. This is one of these legacy items that has been going on for quite some time. Been on council for a year now, been working on this for about a year. I've collected emails, letters dated back from 1989 stating from staff and former council that this was supposed to be corrected. Facts are, the developer goes bankrupt. The city staff changed. We kept very poor records. Plus, the city had to sign off with a drainage issue, but unfortunately, portions were never done or records kept. I believe there was a few councillors around the table who remember all the issues after this developer has left. I've reviewed this with the deputy mayor, the mayor, engineering, roads, and even Robin Carlson. I think it's time that we started doing something and fixing the problem that's lasted way too long.
Thank you. Do you want to speak to it as seconder?
Might as well, I'm sitting here. So thank you. I will agree with Councillor McDonald on this particular issue. It is a legacy. I mean, I've heard about it well before Councillor McDonald took his position in that ward, and it's a bone of contention. There's some issues. You've got, you know, a runoff that's creating havoc with the driveways that are going to the lake. And as you can see, Councillor McDonald has done his homework and his due diligence, and I think at this time we do need to move forward and have a resolution put in place for the residents.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Yeo.
Yeah, through you, is it coming back to council with the cost to it, or are we just blank checking it? Just for clarification.
Councillor McDonald, is it coming back to council with costs and?
I'm sure hoping it is, yep. I've asked for it.
Yes, the answer is yes. It's being asked to come back to council with costs and work and all those good things.
Okay, thank you. Just making sure we're coming back before it goes ahead. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor? And that passes. Next item is memorandum regarding parking solutions on Mary Street West, Lindsay, in front of Caress and Care. Councillor McDonald, you're up again.
Yes, thank you. Move is printed with a small change. I would like this to be changed for Q1 2024. And the issue with this is in Crescent Care on Mary Street. It's a school route, bus route, 2 seniors home, a school, a lot of traffic. When the COVID hit a couple years ago, they locked all the doors in the back and they only had one entrance into the Crescent Care, and people started parking on the road. And now COVID is over and everybody's still parking on the road. It's dangerous. I've had lots of issues with that. Mr. Kelly and I have reviewed this ourselves, and we believe that it's warranted and a study and a possible solution.
I have a seconder. Councillor Smeet, did you wish to speak to it?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just in quick support of Councillor McDonald, I've driven by and we've had a chat about this. You can almost match the amount of cars that are on Mary Street with the amount of vacant parking spaces on Angeline. So it's, I think this study will be effective, and it's a great motion for our snowplow drivers too that like to switch over to Q1.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All in favor? And that passes. Next item is a memorandum regarding the addition of Beaver Road to the 5-year roads plan. Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just asking, please, that this road be considered in the 5-year roads plan. I'm not specifying any year. As long as it gets onto the plan, appreciate it. People on that road and the businesses on that road would appreciate it because it's been constantly coal patched, and the solution is to properly resurface it down the road. So we have to get it on the radar, get it in the 5-year roads plan. That would be the best way to do it, in my opinion, and hope I can get support here. Thank you.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Warren? Do you wish to speak to it? Okay. Councillor Yeo, do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, I just had a question through you, Mr. Mayor. Do we have any idea how many of our roads we have no plan for? It seems to be a common occurrence we're getting roads brought in to be put on a plan. So 5-year roads plan, if it's not on there, do we know the road's there? Or do we just have no plan for that road? Or is there a 10-year plan that we don't know about? No.
All the roads are on a plan, but we only show those to be done in the next 5 years. So my understanding is there's a report coming back on the 5-year roads plan, and there'll be an opportunity to either remove or request that other roads go on. And there'll be a rationale on why the 5-year roads plan exists. So the answer to your question is yes and no.
Perfect, thank you.
Seeing nothing else, all those in favor? And that passes. The next item up is a memorandum regarding the limited service agreement for Gillis Street, Fenland Township. Councillor Perry.
Thanks, Mayor. This is a perfunctory matter. I'm hoping this is simply like we did for Lakeview Park Road last council meeting, is to provide an extension over the snow season. There was a back and forth of exchanges of text with the LSA, with the lead resident. The latest version came about 2 weeks ago. They're asking for time to consult with the residents on the road. A couple of people have also passed away, so they would need time to find out who has legal capacity to sign an LSA on their behalf.
How much time are you giving them to sign the LSA?
I would say it would be the same as for consistency, Lakeview Park Road. For the 2023-24 winter season.
Is there a seconder? Councillor McDonald. Did you wish to speak to it, Councillor McDonald?
Yeah, it sounds pretty reasonable that, unfortunately a few people have passed away and they can't get things signed, and that's what's holding up. So I think they need a little more time to consider this, and I think we should give them the time to do that.
Thank you. Councillor Yule.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. This road historically had winter control and it's LSA. So we're looking for the extension, is that?
Yes, it did have, and this is the one we went back and forth on a limited service agreement. And eventually we said if they didn't sign by a certain date, we would remove it. They did not sign, it was removed. They have now had second thoughts on it. And they went one winter without service from the city, and they would now like it. And I think Director Robinson would like to say something on this. So, Director?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're correct. There's a long-standing history to this. I guess my understanding, if I look at the resolution as presented, that staff be instructed to enter an LSA with residents for Gillis Street for continued specified servicing, that direction's already there. We're already in the process of working. If the council is seeking to provide direction to staff to reinstate services ahead of signing an LSA, that's a different resolution. I just want to make sure we're clear that what we're asking for, if the council is seeking for direction to resume service for this winter season to enable residents to sign the agreement over the course of the winter, fantastic. But this doesn't provide direction to staff to start service again, because there is current direction to cease service.
You are correct.
And I can understand that it's confusing. I don't think this is the correct memo that was circulated with the package. There was a memo, to the best of my knowledge, that I'd submitted around this being an extension to be able to have plowing resumed during the 2023-24 winter season, for them to, again, consider the latest version of the LSA that came back from staff, to consult residents on the actual road, and to find out whose legal title is in place of the residents who've passed away.
So your motion is that winter service be provided to Gillis Street until such time over the winter that an LSA can be signed. Is that correct? Is that the motion you want?
Yes, concluded and signed. Thank you.
Right. Is seconder okay with that? Okay. Councillor Smeaton.
Just a quick question, because that was additional information I didn't know. Is this an unassumed road?
Yes. Oh, well, it's a private, I think it's a private road.
It's private, right? Okay. And they've had no service all of last year?
That's correct.
Knowing they could have signed this, so it's been over a year. So has the people just passed away since, and that's the issue, is the people who...
There are a number of issues,
yeah,
including the principal who is down there has been ill and in the hospital and out of the hospital. So there were a number of issues that went on. And I think that due to, people's schedules and things, some time passed before an updated MOU or limited service agreement got passed back and forth. Director, did you have something else?
Sorry, I just want to be clear on the resolution. So is it to resume service for the 2023-2024 season to enable the LSA to be signed? And again, so if it's not signed and we're dragging through till next fall, we're back in the same situation again? Just want to be clear.
I would say if it's not signed by the end of summer next year, that service will cease. Is that correct, Councillor Barry?
That's going to depend on the parties, but and right now we just want to give them more time to be able to have their service and get this LSA concluded.
So, but I think we need to put a time limit on it. I mean, it can't, because they can just sit on it and assume we're going to.
I'm sure next fall would be reasonable.
So, let's say August 31st.
Sure, I think that would be reasonable. Yeah,
that fine?
Yep. Thank you,
Councillor Joyce.
Yeah, I'm all for having the road plow, but without the LSA signed first, are we exposed to any liability situations here?
Well, we plowed it for about 75 years without, so And we have other roads that we do the same thing for, so do we have liability? We got liability for everything. We're 1% responsible no matter what happens, so.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay, got a mover and seconder. Everybody understand the motion? All in favor? And that passes. Memorandum regarding a school bus stop arm camera proposal. Deputy Mayor Richard.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. This is a pilot project that was brought up at our CPAC meeting in June. Councillor Warren and Councillor Ashmore also sit on this. At that time, they had made a proposal about buying a one-arm project to be put on a bus, and they will rotate it. There's 73 buses in our school system, 3,700 students, and this will allow real-time reaction to be able to capture the violations. I'll just give you one indication of some real-time data here. During 2021, the school year, there was 147 incidences. This year, 2022 to 2023, there's already been 245 incidences. This is a one-time project. There will be an extensive media campaign, and they plan on rotating the routes to capture these issues that seem to be long going. Why I'm bringing it at this time, it was just 2 weeks ago that the Trillium Lakeland School Board had agreed to pay 50% of this project. And at that time, I reached out and am looking at having this taken out of the area rate stabilization committed to OPP, which is $2,356.36. I think it's something that we should support because, as we've all heard, we have a lot more speeding in our issue and some bad actors, and when it's our children's safety that's could be compromised, I think this is a good project that we should be endorsing.
Do you have a seconder? Everybody. Councillor Joyce. Any comments or questions? Seeing none. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank Deputy Mayor for putting that together, and Councillor Warren and myself are on that committee. We need to support our school bus drivers. I don't know how they do it. I mean, I could never imagine what they go through. Every driver you see on the road every day, what they have to put up with trying to be cognizant of everything that's going on around them. It's amazing work that they do, and the skill set that they have. At one time, we used to have safety patrols on schools, and I don't know why the school board at the time dropped it, but anyways, we're grateful that they're chipping in now, and we could contribute ourselves and start this as a project. So I think it's a win-win for the safety of our students. Thanks.
Thank you. All in favor? And that passes. Last, Councillor Perry, memorandum regarding a resolution of the culvert onto 149 Fenland Drive, Fenland Township. And go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we proceed, if I could just get the Gillis Street resolution read back, because they also had grading as well as snow removal, and I wanted to make sure it included the traditional service.
Grading is summertime.
Right, and we voted to extend it until August 31st. So I just want to make sure.
We did not, we said winter control. We haven't done grading. So, and the motion was passed.
Right, wouldn't both be reasonable? Given that
we can right now. You can do a follow-up, yeah.
All right. So because that for the 60 years that Gillis Street has been included in snow plowing and a grading, at least one, if not two gradings per year, I'd just like to amend that so it's the traditional services that, but limited services that the Gillis Street residents have enjoyed. until August 31st. Thank you.
Seconder is okay with that follow-up?
Yes, I am.
Did, Director?
Yeah, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. We have not provided grading activity on that road for many years. Winter maintenance has been provided. Again, it's really council's decision on what they want to do, but they are, if the resolution is to add grading into that road, it's a service that hasn't been historically, at least recently historically provided.
Yeah, I think we had this discussion one time, and the grading had happened, and then they didn't need it one year, and we didn't do it, and then we never did it again, and then they wanted it. So I think what they're asking is that we do a grading next summer, at least one and maybe two.
Correct, Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks. All in favor? And that passes. Now go ahead with your...
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Now back to the business at hand. This too, like Councillor McDonald, brings forth a legacy issue. One of a municipal drain whose flow goes across the property of a resident in Southview Estates. And there's some debate or difference of opinion between staff and the property owners as to whether this is city land or whether it's permitted by prescriptive rights. Regardless, as you'll see in your packet, I have provided some photos here. You can see in the one where the runoff is coming down, how much it builds up in the winter, and then, which I think is a point of agreement, there is erosion taking place, again, next to the resident's garage, resident's permitted garage. Again, there's some debate and difference of opinion as to whether the property owners are entitled to a remedy or to service for assistance in working on or correcting this amount of flow and how it's distributed across the land. We're not asking for a resolution of that today. What this motion brings forward is for that to direct staff to look at solutions and report back so that we can then decide on direction if needed at that point as a council. Thank you.
Director Rojas.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So just to be factual, this lot creation was done decades and decades ago through a draft plan of subdivision and the corresponding M plan. The drainage through this has remained unchanged. It was there prior to the houses being built, and it remains in the same configuration and alignment today as it was decades ago. The area that there isn't an area that requires drainage. The recommendations brought forth, removal, diverting, or burying, are not possible because it's the low point of the road. It's the low point of the road, and anywhere else would be uphill. So so we can't bury the culvert because there's no cover on it. You can't remove it because it would violate your drainage pattern, and the only way to divert it is to build a pump station. Plain and simple. Right? Because you're not going to regrade the entire built-up area. So the only viable solution is a pump station that to solve a problem that really is non-existent. Right? Again, the drainage pattern has been well established, well before the houses have been built. The residents of 149 have the new residents of 149, because they moved in several years ago, have did some modifications to their front lawn. Minor. But again, as you can see by the pictures, there is some evidence of freezing and thawing, but to my knowledge, there has been no evidence of basement flooding. There has been some minor erosion. And again, I recommended to the homeowner and to the councillor that some erosion protection measures, such as riprap or lining of the banks, would be appropriate to minimize or divert the energy to stop the erosion. But other than that, there's really no requirement for the city to investigate this concern.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder for your motion? Councillor Ashmore, you're seconding it? Okay. If you were requested to do a report back, you pretty much summed up what your report would be, is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Joyce?
Yeah, just curious on the culvert itself, is that on city property, city installed, private property?
So the culvert itself is within the road right away, so on city property. But it upstream of the culvert is private property, and downstream of the culvert is private property. That is not common practice today. So today, in a subdivision or a road reconstruction, we get a protected outlet. So we get either a block or an easement to take drainage through. Whether it's a combination of private or municipal drainage, doesn't matter. If the infrastructure is on our right-of-way, we have what's called a protected outlet. And that's common to every new subdivision that gets draft plan approved. We look at the drainage and we have either an easement or a block in city ownership or city rights. That wasn't the case back in the 1960s. In the 1960s, they created drainage patterns without a formal easement because it's the chicken and the egg. So the drainage pattern came first, there was no lots, then they created the lots, then they issued building permits on top of the lots with that drainage pattern pre-established. So again, I'm not a lawyer, but in the legal sense, that's called prescriptive rights. So, but only a judge could grant prescriptive rights. So that's staff's review of the situation. We have the M plans, we have the lot creation, and we have the drainage pattern that was established. Due to time, we would think we'd be in a position for prescriptive rights, but only a judge can grant that.
My other question is correct me if I'm wrong here, but in a new build, the city puts in the culvert. 20 years go by, that culvert needs to be replaced. Even though it's on city property, it's now beholden on the property owner to replace or repair that culvert. Am I correct in that?
That is incorrect. So the culvert, it's a cross culvert on a road. So it's a little bit different for a driveway culvert.
Okay, sorry, this culvert goes underneath the road.
Correct.
Okay.
This culvert goes underneath the road, so underneath road culverts are city assets. I can't really speak to driveway culverts, but Director Robinson may be able to speak to that.
So I withdraw the question. I thought it was a driveway culvert, so thank you.
Councillor Ashmore, I'll get you on sum up.
Thank you. This is very similar to a situation we have ongoing in Omemee. The similarities are quite striking, and maybe Director Rojas could maybe comment on that. There's a street called Alma Street, and this is so similar to that, where we have our own infrastructure that's in drainage, culverts and whatnot, and it's very similar, would you say it is, to that situation in Omemee that we've been ongoing for a while? And they had the option of going to a municipal drain, but that's a time-consuming process and expensive process, petitioning and public meetings and all that, and engineering expenses. This was the most cost-efficient way to get this remedied. And we did the same thing in Omemee, or we're working on it too in that street.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there are some similarities with the Omemee example. They both are road culverts, let's call them, that discharge onto private property. And I want to clarify the term municipal drain. So a municipal drain is defined under the Drainage Act with a bylaw and benefiting parties and a schedule. That's a municipal drain. A drain owned by the municipality is not a municipal drain. It's just a drain owned by the municipality. So clear distinction between the two, and different funding sources, different appeal rights. It's a night and day. So both examples are drained owned by the municipality. They're not municipal drain. In the Omimi example, it required a defined ditch. A defined ditch was not there, and it would require ditching of the low-lying area to minimize the flooding. In the 149 Fenland Drive, the ditch is already there. It's free and clear. The drainage course is already established. So yes, there is some erosions that could be mitigated, but diverting, burying, or removing the culvert without a pump station is not feasible.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Yes, through you. Thanks. You had a recommendation on how to fix this. Would that be very inexpensive for these people to do this themselves and recommend what they could do to fix it?
So we had meetings with Councillor Perry and the homeowner. So there's two concerns. One concern is the water flowing through the side yard of their property. So that really can't be remedied unless you divert it with a pump station. The second concern dealt with erosion or localized erosion around their garage, around their front yard. That potentially could be solved by adding some riprap either on private property or at the end of the culvert within a right-of-way to dissipate the energy and minimize the erosion. So the erosion issue could be resolved. The diversion issue would require a pump station. And in my opinion, there's no need for it.
Yep. Councillor Smeaton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, through you. So the mitigating strategies you just described, they would get rid of the ice, or the ice would still basically, for all that ice buildup that I saw in the picture, that's also included with the pump station would be the only way to not have that happen. Is that correct? Sounds obvious.
Through you,
but that's
Mr.
right.
Mayor. So the ice buildup is a third issue, let's call it, where it freezes and thaws, especially in February, March, when you have those fluctuations in temperature. It's not unique to this area. I think the Director of Public Works would tell you that we have that issue in a lot of our open ditches, especially when there's shade cover or trees or something preventing the sunlight from it. I believe Public Works has a steamer that they go out and steam it within the road right away to get water flowing. So the freezing of the icing is just the climate we live in, right? The erosion happens on either the spring runoff or heavy storms when there's a lot of water flowing through that culvert. That culvert's quite large, and the energy in the water flows down and it takes soils with it, just like any other open ditch. So the erosion measure could be mitigated by riprap, which is large stones that basically the water hits, dissipates the energy, slows it down, and greatly reduces erosion.
Councillor Perry, you want to sum up?
Yeah, I believe there was an additional solution that was also discussed around a ditching or a concrete solution, a basin of sorts. Could you mention that possible option as well, Director Rojas?
Sure, through you, Mr. Mayor. So right now the ditch is it's a large swale, so it's an earth ditch. So it's a combination of topsoil, grass, organic material. That again, the side banks erode with time or with heavy flows. So you could put a concrete cradle. You could harden that ditch. So instead of a earth ditch, it could be an asphalt spillway. That would also limit the erosion, but that would be on private property. That is a possible solution. It's more expensive than adding some riprap to the end of the culvert within city property. But that is also, I guess, another alternative.
And Director Rojas and Director Robinson, I had talked about possibly that as an interim measure pending what I would like to see, and what I'm asking council for as a resident, is simply more information on these options and a costing, so we know what relief may be in sight for these residents. I kind of use the what if it was us test. You know, my late father, God bless him, would lose his mind if this was happening across his property. And prescriptive rights, not prescriptive rights, those kinds of issues, it is up at the top, it is the city property. It is maintained. The culvert, the drain that is causing, well, through which all of this is flowing, is a city asset on city property maintained by the city, which is then leading to the flow and the erosion, which has been conceded here. So what my motion just asked for today is, are we able to put this to staff, take what we've heard today, put it on paper so we know the ins and outs, the details, get a costing, and then we're able to come back at the end of Q1 and see A, what's happened in the meantime, and B, we'd be well more informed to make a decision. Thank you for summation, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Joyce, that was sum up, so there's no more questions. Sorry.
It wasn't a question or comment, but that's okay.
Okay. All right, got a mover and seconder. All those in favor? And that passes. We now come to bylaws. Councillor Perry, you have bylaws. Councillor Joyce has requested bylaw 14.1.2 and 14.1.3 be extracted.
Thank you, Mayor. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDonald that the bylaws shown in section 14.1 of the agenda, namely items 14.1.1, 2, and including 14.1.18, be ready first, second, and third.
Save and accept.
Oh,
Save and accept 14.1.2 and 14.1.3.
Save and accept for 14.1.2 and 14.1.3 be read first, second, and third time passed, numbered, signed, and the corporate seal attached.
Thank you. All in favor? And that's passed. Councillor Joyce, 14.1.2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I'm going to bundle 14.1.2 and 14.1.3 together because this.
We'll have to deal with them individually.
All right. My issue is 14.1.2 is loan number 2829 versus 14.1.1, which is loan number 2828. Loan number 2828 is a 10-year. I understand the need for debentures. I'm not against that. The debenture is in loan number 2828 is a 10-year debenture. You add up the math. $2.3 million loan comes out to $585,000 in interest payments. So 25% of the loan is paid in interest over the 10 years. Loan number 2829 is a 20-year loan. Adds up to 52% of the principal is paid in interest. And I just don't think that's good use of taxpayer money, and I'd like to see debentures at a 10-year maximum going forward.
Director, would you like to address that?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I understand the query, and thank you. We had a discussion previous or just prior to council. The intent of going on a 10, 20, or 30-year life cycle of a debt is to match the life cycle of the said asset we're debenturing for. So we'll use the example in 14.3, a bridge. Director Rojas will indicate that a bridge lasts 80 to 100 years. So spending all of that money in the first 10 years to pay off that bridge, we try in the economic terms to match the payment to the life of the asset or the beneficiary of that asset. So 80 years from now, people will be enjoying that bridge, and to put it all on today's taxpayer with the affordability of the debt in this year's operating budget or next year's, we have to balance the affordability within our long-term financial plan. So again, we limit the 30 years to just those assets that are extremely long in terms of the asset life cycle.
Councillor?
Does anybody else have any other comments to this?
Councillor Ashmore?
Well, I just think that, I'll give an example, that the bridges, they do last 50-plus years. And you've got to, it's like buying a house or a farm. I mean, you can't, your amortization helps your cash flow. If you go 30 or 35 years, and even a vehicle now, you have to go 6, 7 years. They're so expensive. You can't do that in 3 years like you used to be able to do. It's just too much. The principle's too much. But if we were to shorten our amortization, it really affects our cash flow in a negative way. Just to mention that Mill Pond Bridge was under budget. It was built under budget, but still, I mean, we have to, in these big projects, in my opinion, and that's just the way the director mentioned, you have to spread it out a longer period of time, the debenture, to help your cash flow. You just can't cash flow it that quickly and make the payments under 10 or 20 years. It's just really, it's too hard on your cash flow. So this is the reason why we debenture longer, because of the length of this asset, which is 50 to 75 years of a lifespan.
Thank you. You wish to move the, oh, Councillor Warren.
No, I was just going to agree that that's why you debenture. It's a long term, so I totally agree. I'll second the motion.
We don't have, do you want to make them?
Nope.
I don't know. Councillor Joyce,
Sure.
are you going to move them or not?
No, I'll move it as, I did speak to Director Bukaboom beforehand, just prior to sitting down. I do get a better understanding that in terms of making it fit into our long-term financial plan, but I still wanted to bring this up, that I think she said, "Are you happy now?" I said, "No, I'm still not happy, but I understand." So I wanted to make a point that going forward, in our long-term financial plan, if we can make debentures in a shorter time frame to pay less money to the banks on the interest, is something I'd like to see going forward.
So are you moving item 14.1.1 to be read a first, second, and third time, passed, number signed, and the corporate seal attached?
No, 14.1.2.
Sorry, 14.1.2.
Sam.
Have a seconder for that? Councillor Warren? All in favor? And that's passed. And again, 14.1.3, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, numbered, signed, and the corporate seal attached. Councillor Joyce?
Yes, in agreement, just pointing out that's a 30-year debenture and 77% of the principal is being paid in interest, but we will move it as printed. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Ashmore. All in favor? And that's passed. Confirming bylaw, Councillor Smeaton, I believe you have the confirming bylaw.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ashmore. I move that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of a regular council meeting held Tuesday, November 21st, 2023 be read a first, second, and third time, passed, numbered, signed, and the corporate seal attached.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. I have a motion to adjourn. Councillor Yeo, Councillor Perry, all in favor? And we're done. Thank you all. Remember, we're back here next Tuesday morning, bright and early, and we're doing the capital budget.